Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel, or on Rumble, or on Twitter, or X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. I will never stop calling it Twitter, by the way. And what we talk about are all different aspects of the culture war, focusing mostly on what's going on the political left, because the left is winning and are far more powerful. But we also delve into the political right as well on occasion, as we have been doing a little bit with our friends over on Cozy and the Groypers and stuff like that. But don't worry, this is not another Groyper stream. I don't think we're going to do another Groyper / Nick Fuentes stream for a while, because we really do need to focus our attention back on what I think the true enemy is, which is the left and everything that they've done, and the takeover of just our culture, our institutions, by this far left political ideology that people are just ignoring, to be honest. And it might seem funny for me to say that people are ignoring it, because you can't go on Twitter or any of these news things without outrage over something that the left has done. So it's like, Carlin, how could they possibly be ignoring it? Like, Libs of TikTok has like millions of followers, like all these places that constantly make fun of the left, and I've got a fruit fly flying right in front of me, have millions of followers. How are they possibly ignoring what's going on? And I say, oh honey, you think they're showing you the real stuff? Most of those influencers that you follow have no fucking idea what's really going on. They don't know. They don't know. Yup, Lauren Chen is now dropping F-bombs over Gaza, probably because Lauren Chen has been told by the Blaze that she needs to shut the F up about it, and is now just like taking out her frustration on X. Thank you for the super chat. And so, like, the reason that I say that the people on the conservative right who simply use the culture war to get outrage clicks and likes and replies on Twitter, or to make money, or to do content that is going to outrage their supporters. We know what the real stuff is because we watch the real stuff on this channel, and we know because we see the real stuff that most of those people have no effing idea what's going on. Anyone that you talk to that truly believes that the conservative right is winning should never be trusted again. Anyone that you talk to or hear from that tries to convince you that we've turned a corner in the culture war and it's all going to go back to normal, and woke is on the decline, guys. People are waking up because of the war in the Middle East. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. I'm sorry. I wish they were. No one wishes they were more than me. I'll tell you that. I'm not just trying to rain on everyone's parade here. But there are a lot of people who are lying to themselves. There are a lot of people who are lying to their audiences. And we don't do that here. We hinge into reality. We look at what's going on. We look at how the left has taken over institution after institution after institution. We look at how feckless the right has been to stop them, to the point where most of them don't even know how the left did it. They don't even know that the left still controls everything. And we hinge ourselves back into reality, and we wait for the inevitable decline that will send us into the Marxist utopia, which I really do believe is inevitable. I'm a little black-pilled today. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I'm a little black-pilled right now. I'm a little bit black-pilled. And I'm going to talk more about why I'm a little bit black-pilled in a second. But first, I want to tell you what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about today, which is actually really interesting. There's been this viral tweet on Twitter that's made its way around from a guy named James Fishback. And I'm going to read you the whole thing. And then I'm going to tell you what this means for what we're going to do on the stream today. So James tweeted out like a 13-minute video. And he said, what you're about to watch is the final round of the most prestigious national high school debate tournament. Team A proceeds to tell Team B that they will not be debating the assigned topic, benefits and costs of the IMF, because trans people are being genocided by MAGA Republicans, and that is way more important than debating the IMF. Team A starts off by playing an audio clip from a 1980s AIDS protest that says 28 states want to kill trans people like her. They tell the judge that this round does nothing to the IMF itself, and as such, they have decided this round is going to be a debate about debate. And the judge's choice instead is to affirm their performance. They proudly declare that they will occupy the debate space until trans debaters can participate safely. Team B then immediately concedes the round because they don't want to dispute that trans genocide is real and be labeled transphobic. The rest of the round is a struggle session where Team A states that misgendering is violent and that if you do it, you should automatically lose. This is the final round of the most prestigious high school debate tournament of the year. And they made a mockery of it with their selfish, unintelligent, performative rant. The worst part, the judges praised Team A for their bravery and courage and crowned them national champions. This is sick. It's anti-merit, anti-debate, and anti-American. No wonder droves of kids are quitting high school debate. So this is a 13-minute clip of this. And this is the thing, you can see it's got over 3 million views, that's kind of making its way around Twitter. This is the thing that a lot of people have watched. But I DM'd James and I said, James, do you have the full video of this? Because I'd like to watch the full video, because that's what we do on my channel. We don't watch clips that are out of context. We watch the full video to make sure we know what's going on. And James very nicely replied, yes, I do have the full video. And here it is. So what we're going to be watching today, guys, is the full video. The one that apparently has been pulled off YouTube, but James had the presence of mind to save a backup copy. Good for him. And we are going to be watching the full video of the high school debate that inspired this now viral Twitter thread that's been making its way around Twitter. Now, a couple of things. Number one of the reasons I wanted to watch this is not just that it's a struggle session, which I think is generally something that we should probably pay attention to. That's not the only reason why I wanted to watch it. I wanted to watch it because of this. The schools are this is the epitome of, okay, anyone who tells you guys that conservatives are about to turn the corner in the culture war does not understand how the left took over the schools, when they took over the schools, the end result of them taking over the schools, and the holy hell that we are about to get launched into in the next couple of years. So, a too long didn't read. In the 1950s, the Frankfurt School came to America. They set up shop at Columbia University. This started the long march through the institutions in which the socialists, and I'm going to call them what they are socialists, took over every single elite institution of higher education in America. They took over a lot of the non-elite ones as well. Today, the socialist left essentially owns academia. They own higher education, and we are never getting it back. It is not going to happen. They spent decades, slowly but surely, taking it over while conservatives sat back and twiddled their thumb and prayed to Jesus. The left was working to take over the institutions. When they took over higher education, they took over the schools of education, the colleges of education, that are where teachers, potential teachers, go to learn how to be teachers. There have now been at least 2, possibly 3 generations of public school and private school and charter school teachers that were trained in Marxist ideology in the College of Education. And they don't know how to teach any differently. It's all they've ever been trained in. Then you have state boards of education that add additional training that's completely indoctrinated on top of that. You add all these teacher education conferences that are constantly reinforcing the ideology. The colleges of education are completely captured. They've completely contaminated the teaching pool, and those are the teachers that are teaching your kids today. The long march through the institutions went from about the 1950s up until about 2008, 2009, 2010. What was happening in 2008, 2009, 2010? Well, Barack Obama got elected president, and we moved into what the woke left calls a post-racial society. Because we had an elected Black president, that means that we had conquered racism. And so what they did is they stopped focusing on racism as an individual thing about white people feeling they're superior to Black people based on the color of their skin. And they started talking about racism as systemic racism, as the institution of racism. When that happened, we all know, because we watch their content, they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about the institution of capitalism. Systemic racism means the system of capitalism. That is what they believe is upholding racism, because capitalism created slavery. That's what the left believes. I'm not saying I believe that. That's what the left believes. Capitalism created slavery, which created systemic racism. And so now all of the inequities that we see in our society are grounded in capitalism. And the only way to overcome systemic racism is to abolish capitalism and try something else. That something else is going to be Marxism. What else happened around that time period? Occupy Wall Street, which was one of the first major destabilizing efforts of the woke left, happened around that time period. What else happened? Well, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they started talking about racism at a much higher rate. The mentions of racism in like the New York Times had been going along at like a steady, slow clip for like a long time. And then right about 2008, 2009, 2010, they started talking about racism all the effing time. What else happened around that time period? Well, I know from my research, and I actually don't know that anyone else has looked into this but me. I literally think I'm the only person on the internet that's actually looked into this. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, tell me. But equity started getting pushed into school districts around 2008, 2009, 2010. They started creating equity departments in school districts in Portland, Oregon, in Seattle, in Burlington, Vermont, in these like super lefty cities. You started seeing the creation of equity departments in these school districts around the same time period. You also started seeing the creation of formalized equity plans. They integrated equity. Equity is Marxism. Equity means that we are going to abolish systemic racism, which means capitalism, and reduce all disparities to zero, which means we are going to build a society in which everyone is equal, everyone has the same access to resources, everyone has the same thing going on. That's Marxism, guys. What they mean is that everything is going to be available to the public and nothing is going to be privatized. That is the only way you can really achieve equity, is to overthrow capitalism and make sure all of our outcomes are normalized. They started integrating this into school districts in 2008, 2009, 2010 as a formalized part of the school district. This is how the left wins, guys. No one thought anything of it. You don't want to know why they didn't think anything of it? Because they didn't know what equity meant. They didn't know what the term meant. They thought it was just the same as equality, right? It's not the same as equality. Equality means equality of opportunity. Equity means equality of outcomes. Equality leads to capitalism, which is a meritocracy founded on individualism and effort and people showing up, and the best person gets the job, and that's just the way it goes. Equity is grounded in an unequal distribution of resources to make sure that everyone ends at the same place. And when you really dig into how the socialist left talks about equity, it's synonymous with Marxism. It is Marxism. It is socialism. The only way that we will have the only way that we will ever achieve the amount of equity that they want us to achieve is by getting rid of our entire system. They literally say this. We've seen it. We have it on video. So what's my point? What's my point? Well, that's not what we're worried about, Fish Addict. And again, I have to say, you've been on my channel long enough to know better, bro. You really have. What's my point? Since 2008, 2009, 2010, equity has been integrated into every part of a lot of K through 12 schools. We are about to see the first group of graduating classes of students who have been schooled in fully indoctrinated woke education from the time they were 5 years old all the way up through high school. And then once they go to college, and they're all going to college because they've been trained to believe that they have to go to college. Once they go to college, they're getting it on an entirely next level because all of the universities are already taken over. And this has already happened. This is not something we can go back and fix. This is not something that we can undo. We are literally about to see the first generation of students graduate from school and go out into the working world that have been fully indoctrinated nationally in woke education. This debate video, this is the result of that. This is the logical result of that. This is what happens. And I'll tell you what, in about 5 years, James Lindsay isn't thinking about it like this. So I don't care if he's more. James Lindsay, I'm gonna be honest, and I love and adore James Lindsay. I really do. You guys know that. I very rarely shit talk James Lindsay. James Lindsay is being paid by organizations that are paying him to be optimistic. Moms for Liberty has a very vested interest in James Lindsay being optimistic. Turning Point USA has a very vested interest in James Lindsay being optimistic. So, I don't care if James Lindsay's optimistic, because I've looked at the reality. Also, James Lindsay and I do very different things. James Lindsay looks at the philosophy. James Lindsay does not look. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. James Lindsay doesn't do the boots on the ground shit that I do. He looks at philosophy. He looks at the papers of dead people, and there's a lot of value in that. And God knows he's been doing this longer than I have, and God bless him for it. I want him to keep doing what he's doing for a long time. But to compare what James Lindsay's done with what I've done is just simply a logical fallacy. My stuff is way more boots on the ground. My stuff is way more real world. My stuff shows the practical impact of what this ideology has done in a way that James Lindsay's stuff just doesn't. I'm sorry, it does. So people can hope and pray and wish upon a star and pretend that things are optimistic. They can. You're allowed to lie to yourself, guys. You really are. You are allowed to lie to yourselves. But do you know what's going to happen in about 5 to 10 years? And I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but it's going to be about 5 to 10 years. Is that all of those kids that have been in this ideology since they were 5 years old are going to enter the workforce. And this is not going to be one of those situations where they grow out of it. This is what conservatives are really hoping for. They're hoping that, well, they're going to go in the workforce and they're going to get a real job, and then they're going to understand, and then they're going to grow out of it, and then they're going to become more conservative, and yay, we win, even though we didn't do anything, yay, we win. That's not going to happen this time, guys. It's not going to happen. Why isn't it going to happen? Because since about 2016, 2017, 2018, it really started in 2018. And I know this because I was at the HR conferences when this stuff kicked off. HR got completely corrupted by these guys too. I used to speak at the biggest HR conference in the world. Their main event, which is the Society for Human Resources Management big conference, is like a conference of 25,000 HR people. And I used to speak at this conference every year. And I would speak at their smaller events too, but I used to speak at this one because, for people who don't know my backstory, I'm an organizational psychologist. I spent a lot of time working in organizations and stuff like that. And I used to be a featured speaker at this conference. You can go look it up. In 2018, when I was wandering around the exhibit hall at this conference, I forget whether it was in New Orleans or maybe Las Vegas or maybe Chicago, it was one of those cities. They have a massive exhibit hall. These are all of the major HR vendors in the space. When I was wandering around the exhibit hall around 2018, half of the exhibitors were shilling some variation of diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. I really didn't. And it wasn't even just the exhibitors in the sponsorship hall. It was half of the sessions at the damn conference. And it kind of it was why are all these diversity things popping up? That was the extent that I thought of it at the time, because it wasn't impacting me yet. And so I didn't see the big picture yet. But I remember what happened. And so HR has gotten completely taken over by this as well. So what's going to happen when these kids go into the workforce is that the workforce is no longer going to expect them to, hunker down and become adults. No. Maybe onesies and twosies here and there will. The good organizations will, but there aren't enough good organizations left. And most of what's going to happen is these kids are going to go get jobs, and they're going to join a diversity committee, and their HR department's going to be doing all this diversity training shit. And even though it doesn't work, and we know it doesn't work, it doesn't matter because it's all for show anyway. The workplace is now going to reinforce these ideas. This is why we've seen struggle sessions at places like Disney and Netflix and all of the major organizations. By the way, pretty much everything that happens at Netflix trickles down into the HR community. That's true. So what I'm saying is, guys, they're not growing out of it this time. These protests that we're seeing on college campuses with these kids being pro-Hamas, that is the logical end result of what happened in the schools. That is the logical end result of the ideology that they've been fed their entire lives. And even though we've seen these stories of these major Jewish donors that are pulling their money out of these schools now because they're pissed off that the students are protesting pro-Hamas, I think the money's going back right after the president resigns. And the problem will still be undealt with because the Jewish donors have been funding the problem the entire goddamn time, and they don't even realize it because no one has explained to them how this all works. And I think the kids are going to win, by the way. I think that the kids that are protesting in favor of Hamas and the faculty members that are supporting them, they might be running into a little bit of trouble with some of these major donors, but they're going to end up winning. I could be wrong. I really hope I am. I don't always like the predictions that I make, but if I look at the landscape, they have won every single time they've tried to do this. They haven't backed down at all. The students haven't backed down at all. The faculty hasn't backed down at all. No one's backing down. So they may lose millions of dollars and they can't build their new building. Well, guess what? At most of these universities, they're already like luxury hotels anyway. Because around about 2010, a lot of these universities took on a lot of debt to finance these beautiful campuses and beautiful facilities that are already built. And so can they go without an upgrade to one of their schools because a donor gets pissed off and he pulls the $5 million gift in order to do it? They can. They can. That's reality. So I think the students are going to win. I think the money is going to go right back because no one understands why this is happening. And I basically think we're all left. And what we're going to watch today with the full video, and guys, for people who just joined, we're not watching this 13-minute clip that got shown around on Twitter. We're watching the full video today. We're watching the full thing. But before we get into that, I wanted to give that preamble that the reason that we're watching this is the logical end result of what has gone on in the schools. Shayna, thank you for the super chat. It also doesn't help that most on the right are lazy to reach out to anyone under 30 who hasn't lived exactly like them since birth. Matt Walsh's rants are the best example. I completely agree with you, Shayna. I completely agree. So guys, we're going to be going into this, but before we get started, I do just have a couple orders of business. Number one, please do make sure you mount that like button for me. Mounting the like button, and you can do whatever else you want to the like button too. Just don't smash it. We aren't hooligans on this channel. We aren't teenagers, okay? We aren't teenagers having like sloppy, like first time sex on this channel. We mount like adults or whatever else you want. But it is actually important that you guys are doing things like the like button and that like you're subscribing to the channel, because right now the YouTube algorithm is kind of murdering me. And I need to break the algorithm again. I have to break the algorithm like every couple of months, to be honest. And so you guys can help me break the algorithm and actually get my content served to people again by mounting the like button. Everyone mounting the like button. Let me see how many people. We have a shocking disparity between the number of people watching and the number of people who have hit the like button for me. Because if you guys don't do this stuff, YouTube doesn't serve my content, which means less people watch it and get exposed to stuff like this. So I would really appreciate it. Another thing you can do is make sure you are subscribed to the channel with notifications on if you are not already. That includes both YouTube and Rumble, which I appreciate everyone watching on Rumble. And if you guys could please take some time to subscribe to my Substack, which is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, I would really appreciate it. Now, here's the thing. Before we get into the video, I have something serious I need to talk about. In the last month on my Substack, my paid subscribers have not moved at all. I have seen virtually zero increase in my paid subscribers. This is the first time since I really started pushing the Substack that I have seen zero increase in my paid subscribers. Now, there could be a couple reasons for that, and I haven't significantly changed the content. In fact, I've been doing the type of content that people have been asking me to do. But there could be a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the war in the Middle East, I think, is taking a lot of attention away from what is going on here. And so people are focused on topics that I don't cover on my Substack, and therefore they just aren't paying as much attention to the topics that I am covering on the Substack. I'll be honest, my views on my Substack have been down about 50%. Like, it's still reaching hundreds of thousands of people, but it's been down pretty significantly, and I think that the war in the Middle East is part of the reason that it's been down. I also think that, quite frankly, I'm being punished by some of my subscribers because I'm taking political positions on the war in the Middle East that they don't like. I think that that's a perfectly reasonable. Well, I don't think it's reasonable. I think it's retarded. But if sometimes what happens, and conservatives love to do this, where if you take a political position that they don't like, then they're going to say, "Fuck you, I'm unsubscribing from all your stuff." And then they continue to read your content for free and consume it for free, but they don't pay for it anymore. So I think the combination of those two things has really impacted my numbers on the Substack. Now, this was a surprise to me because coming out of the socialism conference, I had a record-breaking month on the Substack. It was a really epic month. And I was really hoping for that momentum to carry through to the end of the year. Sadly, situations in the world change, and it is what it is. But now we're in a position where I need to make some changes in order to get things back on track. Because as you guys know, I invest all of my time and my own resources in producing this content. I don't take vacations. My vacation fund was to go to the socialism conference to cover the socialism conference. I don't take days off. I don't do fun stuff because I do this all the time. I produce dozens of hours of content every single week. I produce free content on my Substack for people to consume. And I trusted that if I was going to do this, then people would show up and fund it. Sadly, the last month has put me in a little bit of a position, and I've been trying to really avoid this. I was really hoping to avoid it. I really, really was, but I had to crunch some numbers, and here is the reality that I'm facing. I can make significantly more money if I take all the time and all the energy that I'm putting into my Substack and put it into my merch store. That's just reality. My merch store hasn't had an update in a couple months because I've been mostly focused on the content on the Substack and producing all this content and making clips of all the content that people demanded. They all wanted clips, so I made them a whole bunch of clips. Fine. I've left my merch store kind of lagging in that time period. Well, my merch store, when I'm promoting it and I'm pushing the content out there and I'm rotating the content on a regular basis in the merch store, it does well. It does. And so I have a choice to make. Because I am one person. I don't have a staff. I don't have anyone to help me. I'm one person. I can either continue to put time and energy into the Substack, creating the content that people say they want, or I can take that time and energy and put it into the merch store. And I do not buy the excuses about it's the economy, because I can still sell merch. I can. I can sell people. It is so much easier for me to sell people a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mug than it is for me to get them to sign up for this Substack. And that breaks my heart. It really does. Because as much as I love the merch store that I have, and I really, really do, I would much rather they be reading the Substack than buying a t-shirt. That's just reality. But if people are not going to support the work I'm doing, we need to make changes. I need, in order to keep doing this, 200 new paying subscribers on my Substack by the end of the year. And I need 100 of them within the next month. That's reality. If you want this to continue, if you want the amount of content that I've been delivering to you, if you want all the clips that you guys have asked for to share with your friends, if you want the breakdowns, if you want the undercover coverage, if you want the independent journalism, by the way, I'm one of the few people in the space actually doing independent journalism to cover what's going on the left, then people need to start supporting it. And if people are not going to support it, then I'm going to take my time and energy and I'm going to put it into my merch store. And that's just going to be the way it goes. Until the subscribers on my Substack, the paid subscribers, pick up every single thing that I post on my Substack will be behind a paywall. Maybe with a rare exception. Every single thing will be behind a paywall. If people want to make excuses, that's fine. You're allowed to make excuses. But I know that I have people supporting my work that basically make no money because they value it so much. If you are consuming my content for free every single day and you can't afford an $8 a month subscription, then what you could do is share out the content. What you could do is share it with your friends, share it with your family. But if you can support the work I'm doing, if you are in a financial position for $8 a month or $80 a year, and you're just not doing it because I'm giving you the content for free anyway, so why would you? Then you are in a position to make my content freely available for people who can't support it. Now, Everyday Therapist is asking a great question. I'm a paid supporter on both Substack and Locals. Am I supposed to pay more? No. That's not the point, Everyday Therapist. There are a lot of people who are currently supporting my work, and I don't want those people to have to pay anymore. I don't want those people to have to pay anymore. What I want is for the thousands of people who read my Substack every single day to step up and to fund it. Because right now, this is coming out of my wallet. Everything is coming out of my wallet. And I was willing to front it for a while. I've been fronting a lot of it all year, hoping that enough people would step up where at some point it would just be like gravy, where not that I make a ton of money because I'm never going to get rich off of this, but like where I would be able to be comfortable enough to fund the work I'm doing and maybe every once in a while take a night off. That would be really nice. And then I hoped maybe after that, maybe once I got to a place where things were comfortable and I wasn't running through my savings to fund all this, I hope that, you know what, maybe I can hire some people to help me. Maybe I can hire some people to make clips and to make thumbnails and to make graphics and to do all these things to really amp up all the content. Maybe I can hire some people to do that, which I can't do right now because I don't have enough people funding it. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. This article right here, where I'm asking people to fund what I'm doing, went out a couple hours ago. 2,500 people have already read this article. I quite literally have thousands, and I mean thousands of people a day, every single day, reading my Substack. 2,500 people have already read this. Does everyone want to guess how many paid subscriptions this has generated so far? Because if just 10% of the people who have already read this article said, you know what, I read Carlin's content for free every single day. I believe in it. I know it's valuable. Let me pony up for $8 a month or $80 a year. If only 10% of the people who have already read this article thought that, we would already be done. We would already be done. Literally, already be done. Does anyone want to guess how many people have signed up for paid subscriptions out of that 2,500 people? 5, which is a good start. And I'm not upset about it. And I want to thank everyone who has already signed up for a subscription. That's great. But that's 5 people out of 2,500 people. That's what we're talking about, guys. That's how hard this is to get people to fund this. And so the reason that I will be putting everything, and I mean fucking everything, and I've threatened to do this before, and then I feel guilty about it, and then I back out because I'm like, I want everyone to have this content for free. I really do. I want my personal preference is that I want to keep this content for free for everyone. But if the people who are able to financially support it refuse to financially support it, then the rubber is going to meet the road at some point, guys. I realize that I have a tone that people don't like. I realize that sometimes I have political opinions that people don't like. I realize that sometimes I stick up for people that people don't like. But I never imagined, truly, that it would be this hard to get thousands of people to, come together and to support something that everyone tells me all the time is really valuable. And people want to punish me every single time I say something they don't like. Well, guess what? Then you're going to have no one working for you. So I want to make this work, but I can't do it by myself. I cannot do it by myself when literally I'm having to contend with people having a hissy fit because they don't like something I said on Twitter and trying to throw all of my work out the window that they consume for free, have always consumed for free. It really just leaves like a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, the thing of it is it would be so much easier to sell these people a t-shirt. This is really the thought process I have in my head. It would be so much easier just to sell people a t-shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something like that and never say anything controversial and not spend all my time watching this woke content and not doing any of this. I could literally be making more money by selling people t-shirts than I am doing this. So, from now on, everything is going to be behind a paywall. And hopefully me being very honest and very transparent about the fact that I'm seriously considering, I'm never going to shut it down entirely, but to be honest, spending a lot less time doing this stuff so that I can do more merchandise and stuff like that. Like, if you want, I've said this repeatedly over the last several months, but I really feel like people don't listen to me. If you want me to continue doing this content where I'm sitting here and watching all this boring stuff so that you don't have to, where I'm sitting here and breaking stuff down for you, to teach you, to make clips for you, to write breakdowns on the Substack, to do all of these things. If you want me to continue to keep doing this, then now's the time to fund it. Because if it doesn't get funded, then come 2024, I'm going to start making t-shirts. That's reality. If people don't, and again, I don't think I'm being unreasonable. If 10%, less than 10% of the people who have already read this article today ponied up and said, you know what? I agree, Carlin. I've been consuming your content for free for years. Now it's time to have a paid subscription. Like, if 10% of people had already done this, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I wish it was easier. I wish it was easier to get people to fund this stuff. I wish it was easier to get people to share this stuff. I wish it was easier to get people to read things and to watch things where I didn't have to break it down into the most minute little detail. I wish we lived in a reality where I didn't have to shill the right talking points in order to get people to pay attention. I wish we lived in a reality where I didn't have to kiss the asses of awful people in order to go on their shows to actually get them to talk about things they claim to care about every day. I wish we didn't live in that reality, but we do live in that reality. And the rubber is meeting the road. And I'm really upset about it. I really am. Because, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll go watch that video, which I know is what all you guys want anyway. The reason I'm really upset about it is I really thought that there would be enough people that would care enough to fund this. And the reason that I'm so black-pilled is that I'm getting hit in the face with the fact that it's much easier to sell people a t-shirt than it is to get them to fund things like this. And that makes me really sad because it basically says that people don't actually care. None of the influencers care. Well, very few of them care. They're just telling you guys what you want to hear in order to make money. I will never do that. But maybe that's what people want. Maybe that's what people want. So I guess we'll see. Again, this is a hard goal. I have put goals like this out there before, and then I've kind of been like, okay, we almost made it, close enough, good enough. This is a hard goal this time, guys. I'm no longer fucking around. So, hundreds of thousands of people read my Substack every single month. If I can't get 200 of them to become paid subscribers, then what the fuck am I doing? Then what the fuck am I doing? All right. With that, let's get into our video. We are watching the full debate video today. We are not watching the 13-minute clip. We are watching the full video. What am I going to do if I don't meet the goal? I'm going to start spending a lot less time doing this type of content and a lot more time making clickbait bullshit and selling merch. That's what I'm going to do. No, Fish Addict, the paywall's already happening. The paywall's already going to be starting. The paywall's happening now. But if the combination of the paywall and me basically saying, I'm going to fucking quit. Let me be very clear. I'm going to fucking quit. If that combination of things doesn't elicit people to fund the content that thousands of them have been consuming every single month for free, no more stealing my stuff. No more stealing my time. No more stealing my energy. The influencers that steal my shit all the time and never credit it back, no fucking more. No fucking more. And it really pisses me off. It really pisses me off that the thing that I have to do in order to get people to fund my work is to say, if you don't fucking do this, I'm going to fucking quit. But please don't do this. Please don't do this. I do not want my current supporters to pick up the tab. I don't want that. You're already doing your part. What I'm asking is for the tens of thousands of people that are going to read my Substack this week. I'm asking them to do their part. I'm asking them to do their part. That's what I want. All right, guys. Well, let's dig into this video. Now, the first part of this video, I'm not sure there's actually anything going on because it just kind of keeps going back over like without showing video, but let me just make sure. Sarah, if you can't deal with the reality of the situation, then what you're telling me is you expect me to work for free. I can appreciate that not everyone can financially support my work, but if you're trying to guilt trip me, this is the other fucking thing that pisses me off. If you're trying to guilt trip me over saying that I am no longer going to fund this work out of my savings account because it's you that's stealing from me. You understand that. It's you that's taking from me for free. I currently am paying for this. So do not do this. Do not guilt trip me. I appreciate that not everyone is in a position to financially support it, but most people are. Most people that consume my content are. So, and that might be harsh for people, but that's the reality, guys, is that every single bit of content on the internet, it costs money to create. It costs time to create. It costs time that I could be going to somewhere else. I could be making I swear it's the last thing I'm going to say about it. Do you guys realize how much more money I could be making just by doing corporate training? Do you guys have any idea? Every single minute, hour, day that I don't do the thing that I'm professionally trained to do because I'm doing this instead, I am losing thousands of fucking dollars. Thousands. And I'm happy to do it because I think that this is actually more important. I think what I'm doing is more important. I think what I'm doing is more impactful. But when people are saying I can't afford fucking $8, then you get what you get. And at some point, I'm going to quit and I'm going to go do something that's going to make me like probably a lot happier, significantly more money, allow me to go on vacation. Time is the most precious thing I have. I don't have time to do half of the things I want to do because people are refusing to fund it. People who consume it every day are refusing to fund it. People who share it out are refusing to fund it. They'll go pay $10 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Have no problem with it. This is the problem. So we're going to see. Yeah, 26 cents a day. 26 cents a day. I try to keep it low cost so that everyone can do it. That's part of the point. But don't fucking guilt trip me and say I'm demanding too much. Because I'm not. I'm not. All right. Let's dig into this for real this time. You see where the beginning of it is. It has to go in a little bit. Oh, come on. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I know Twitter does this with video, but let's just see. Don't hear anything yet. Okay. Still don't hear anything. Oh my God. Everyday therapist. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? Thank you, everyday therapist. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. All right, now let's turn our attention to the real stuff and not me complaining on the internet, all right? Where's the sound and why isn't it working? Okay, there it is.
So I think in life...
There, okay. Now I can hear the sound. I'm just trying to find the beginning, guys. Remember,
Yeah.
socialist technology.
I think Marcus is joining soon.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for that person. Can we set up the email chain and such?
Yeah, I can do it if y'all send your emails in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Lovely.
We're okay with live streaming, right?
Yeah, we're fine with what
That was just sent in the chat.
Oh yeah, sorry for not responding earlier. Rebecca also, I'm gonna send you the perfect.
Yeah, this is actually a great reminder. And my being pissed off, I forgot to do this reminder, Shayna. So thank you for that. Guys, we do not. So there are 3 rules in my. Well, there's 2 rules normally, but there's 3 rules on a day like this. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the audience. I can do whatever I want because this is my house, but you're in my house. Just behave like you're in my house. Number 2, no whining. If I ask you to stop doing something, stop doing it. But the third rule that we have on days like this is that we do not attack children. We do not shit talk children. We do not insult children because, and these are all children, these are all in high school, okay? They are a victim of this ideology, and we're going to be adults, and everything that is said in the chats are public. And so it can come back and bite me if I have a chat full of people shit talking kids. Let's just try to be, I know most people know this. I don't want to beat this dead horse too much. But that's reality. Please don't shit talk kids.
Yeah, we're okay with the live stream as well.
I'm just trying to find the beginning of the actual debate.
The hardest work.
Okay.
Okay.
So before I read constructive, I just want to thank a couple people who have been so helpful and amazing for me during my debate career in the past 4 years. First, my family, my mom and my sister, and my grandparents who talked to me about our topics so much, even though probably the last thing they want to talk about, and my dad, who I know would be really proud to see this. My architect Ryan, who is literally the smartest, nicest person in the entire world and puts up with way too much with us, but has literally taught us how to debate. Our prep group, Amanda, Jonathan, Jenny, Karina, Alex, Claire, Shreya, Zoe, Leo, and Lila, who literally work so hard and make prep calls so fun and put up with JJ and I when they really shouldn't. All my lab leaders, Ellie, Chad, Sandy, Jack, Chase, everyone who has helped me over these past years at camp and have shaped how I see debate and just always been there for us to ask questions, even not during camp. Riley, who helped us specifically with this argument and was super helpful. The whole Dalton team, who's just always there for us and our biggest cheerleaders. Andrew Thong, who has judged for us at literally every tournament and is the nicest person ever. JJ's family, who takes me in every weekend for debate tournaments, and Leo, who debated with me last year and is going to be here next year and the year after. And lastly, JJ, who is not only the most amazing debate partner, the hardest worker, the nicest person, and just my best friend in the world. And I'm so lucky to have him. With that, is everyone ready for a case?
For the observers in the round, sorry we couldn't accommodate y'all with the forum.
All right, I'm going to turn the volume up in the browser a little bit because it's a little bit hard for me to hear it, so I suspect it's harder for other people. What that means is I'm going to turn my mic down.
Case is going to have a non-graphic discussion of trans experiences in debate. I'm really sorry again, y'all, but if that's going to be uncomfortable for you, please do whatever makes you safest.
Can I just get a timer on your phone?
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have the most recent doc? Just scroll down and make sure it says in the old.
All right. Yeah.
And then the old says GSC.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Oh. Lock my phone every time I try to do this. So.
Is everyone ready, by the way?
Yes, we're
Okay.
ready. Let's
Good
go.
job,
We've
Rebecca.
already
This is not
started.
TOC finals material,
Okay.
but anyway.
All right.
Yes, this is an elite debate team. I hope is my mic blowing out like because let me know because I turned down the volume of it, so like it sounds fine on my end. But like this is an elite high school debate team. I think this is from like 2 years ago, so it might be a little bit older. But like I really want to emphasize this, guys. This is the result of the education that these kids have received in school. Okay, James Jones says it sounds great. Excellent. I appreciate that.
Thousands of demonstrators demand that New York City do more to help those suffering from AIDS.
Resistance took the form of non-cooperation. Demonstrators had to be dragged to paddy wagons, many shouting as they were carried away. Do you think you really accomplished a great deal?
Yes, I think we do. What else can we do? I've done everything. I've called everybody. I got appointments with everybody. I've got to come to City Hall and state my case. We're dying. The city is dying.
I don't know that man's name, but I know a little of the hopelessness and the horrible sinking fear in his voice. Here's how I
look at her eyes. Look at her eyes.
I woke up a
They're
week
dead.
before and learned that 28 instead of 27 states wanted to kill me.
The clip I played is from the 1987 ACTA protest in New York City. It was not the first and certainly not the last demonstration of its kind. It joins a tradition of trans and queer protest against institutions and
guys, as a reminder, we're watching just because people seem confused in the chat. We are watching an elite level high school debate competition in which they were supposed to be debating about the merits of the IMF, but one debate team decided to take over the debate and instead make it about trans people because they decided that was more important, and apparently you're allowed to do that in a debate. And so what this devolves into, and basically the other team basically gave up because they didn't want to be called transphobic. And so what you're going to see this devolve into a struggle session. But basically we're starting with the point where Team A has decided they don't want to debate the topic that they were given, and they want to talk about trans people instead. And that's what we're doing.
to reform communities that are violent and exclusive. We are here to join this tradition in our own small way. So welcome to the protest. We are tired of how debate treats trans people. More than that, we are tired of the way that their treatment is normalized, how it is treated as a necessary byproduct of having good discourse. When a nationally ranked team is bold enough to read arguments and make trans people uncomfortable in front of an 11-person panel and not be called out for it, something needs to change. When a trans kid can go 3 years in debate believing being misgendered was simply something he needed to take in order to win ballots, something needs to change. When almost every trans person quits debate or considers quitting several times a month, several times a week, several times a day, something needs to change. First, the framework. Status quo political discourse remains fixated on the notion of the child, symbol of a future society we must protect. Baden 12. Politicians universally frame their debaters around the question of what policies are best for children, who keeps the child safest. Politics, however supposedly radical, is simply the universal movement of submission to the ideal of the future, to preserve, maintain, and upgrade the structures of society, and to proliferate them through for all the sake of the children. It is for this reason queerness finds itself missing from political discourse. Sound familiar? It should. Still having abstract policy debates in as violent and exclusionary a community as this constitutes something like reproductive futurism. They're obsessed with the continuation of a society for future generations while ignoring violence that happens every day in spaces like this one. See, trans people know that scenario planning is planning for a future they don't have. They're too busy surviving to participate in that game. Baden 12. Reproductive futurism.
Are other people having volume issues? Because Sarah's saying she can't hear her. Are other people having volume issues? It seems not, but Sarah, I'd recommend turning up the volume on your. I don't really know what to say, so you know.
Which demands that all social relationships be structured in order to allow for a possibility of the future, ensures that it's the sacrifice of all vital energy for the pure abstraction of the idealized continuation of society. Queerness must figure as being against the future itself. In the name of the future, any repression can be justified. This round is going to be a debate about debate. The button you're clicking does nothing to the IMF itself. Your choice instead is whether to affirm our performance. The role of the ballot is to vote for the team that constructs the best strategy for trans liberation in debate. Essentially, you are deciding, will you join the protest? Vincent 13. Debate isn't in of itself a performance. We must evaluate what a debater's performance does and justifies. Those with privilege in debate are never forced to have their performance attached to them. Their arguments are viewed as words on paper. Our alternative is to occupy the debate space until trans debaters can participate safely. Movements are only effective if they create material incentives for those in power to change by denying the community business as normal. TOC finals is the most important debate in the country. This round will be viewed by hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Did you hear what that debater just said? And again, I'm just trying not to blow out the volume because I don't know if my mic volume has been increased because I increased it in the browser. Did you guys just hear what she just said? She said that that their goal with this was to occupy the debate stage until all trans people could feel comfortable in debates because they want to basically they're destabilizing. This is the destabilizing aspect of it. We talked about this a lot, but I'll repeat for anyone that's new. The 4 goals of the woke left are always the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. They have utilized this debate to gain power. How they gained power was by hijacking the entire debate, ignoring the topic that they were supposed to debate on, instead bring this in, and now they're saying, we're not leaving until we get to talk about what we want to talk about, which their effort is to fundamentally destabilize this entire competition.
Affirmation here is the ultimate disruption of the debate space. Ahmed 19. To open institutions that have functioned as containers, you have to throw the usage into crisis. Protest requires becoming an inconvenience. To make violence seeable, sometimes you have to create a scene. To stop business as usual, impossible to pass by. Occupations of political projects. You counter the violence of a system by revealing the violence of a system. We have tried politeness. We have tried blog posts and infographics and endless discussions, but the only way the debate community will change is if we hold their most sacred currency for ransom, ballots. We will occupy the debate space and deny business as usual until there is change. Show trans debaters, trans kids everywhere that they belong. Show them that they deserve to be here in TOC finals and in finals at every other tournament. Show them what this space can be.
So before I read any constructives, I'm just going to call Marcus and we're just going to run some prep. I'll let you know when we start. Starting.
Hang on. So Kathleen says, Carlin, when there's time, could you please repeat the 4 goals? Yeah, I'm always happy to repeat that. And guys, I do have I have clips where I'm talking about the 4 goals. I also have articles on the Substack where I'm talking about the 4 goals. But the 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever the same. Number 1, gain as much power as possible. Number 2, destabilize the system. Number 3, attack capitalism. Number 4, usher in their Marxist utopia. And if you want elaboration on those, just check out, like, just look up 4 goals on my YouTube channel or on my Substack, and it'll come right up. They're calling someone, apparently. That's what they do in debate, Sassy. They talk fast.
30 seconds. Is anyone not ready? Perfect. So I think in light of this, Marcus and I have decided to concede the round against Dalton. I think that their message that they've read throughout the entire tournament
Against Dalton?
Incredibly impactful.
Against Dalton? I didn't know they were from Dalton. What's Dalton? Does anyone know? Pop quiz. What's Dalton? Why is it significant that those kids are and this is basically, you're seeing that they're conceding the debate round now because they're like, we don't want to argue against these people and be labeled transphobes. But does anyone know what Dalton is? Dalton is a private school. What's more significant about Dalton? Dalton is a private school in New York City. It is a very elite private school that went uber woke. Oh yeah. It's one of the wealthiest schools in the country. And they went so woke. Megyn Kelly used to send her kids to Dalton, and she pulled them out 2 years ago because of how woke it got. And I actually did a video on it at the time. But yeah, this is a super elite private school. And what we just learned is that, and this person just said, this is one of the debaters that they just conceded the round, is that these 2 girls are from Dalton.
And by debating it, I don't think we want to undermine the message that they're trying to get across or try to tear down an argument just for the sake of picking up a ballot. But rather, I think what's more important is to hold a conversation, to discuss their messages and their experiences as well. So in light of everything, we think it's the most important thing in the round is to make sure people have a voice in the first place to get across their message. And there's no greater place to do that than TOC finals. But so before Marcus and I engage with the conversation, I think we all have some thank yous that we'd like to give. So first to our administration, Dr. Doctry and Mr. Gallagher, you two are the only reason as to why we are in the activity in the first place by giving so much funding to our school to travel nationally, to go to so many states around the world. I'm really thankful that you do what you do for this program. Next to our coaches, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Paik. I am at a loss of words when I can't describe how much they've helped us. They sit through practices every day. They often come to tournaments around the country with us. They spend time away from their family just to be with us in the first place. And we can't thank you enough. Mr. Lewis wanted me to shout out his 2 cats, just Don and Gigi. So I guess I'm thankful for them as well. Next to our coach for this tournament, Sandeep Shankar. He's done a lot for us. In the beginning, Marcus and I were a bit hesitant, but
I like that he's like, our coach has done a lot for us, and now we're totally going to shit on all of the effort that it took to get us to this place because we're just conceding the round entirely because we're afraid of looking transphobic.
Towards the end, he's put in so many hours of work for us, helping us get through each round and round. And when we don't think we win, he provides us so many words of encouragement, which I'm truly grateful for. So next, I'm wanting to thank my teammates, those who made it here, Daniel, Abraham, James, Baroon. All of them have done so much work throughout the year to get to this point. And without their help and without their work, Marcus and I wouldn't be here in the first place. So they've done so much for me. And to the teammates at home, Alex, Colin, Oliver, Wyatt, Ben, Veer, Isaiah, and all the other novices and sophomores that we have, like Ragi and Reza and Sam, we thank you a lot because you make our debate experiences so much more pleasurable when we walk into practice every day and see the smiles on your face and your incentive to learn. It makes us want to do debate more. So thank you so much. And moreover, I want to thank all the friends that I've made across this country. I cannot tell you how many friends I've made across this country nationally. Kevin, Riley, Pranav, Zach Youssef, Sune Rastogi, Sukum Kang, all these friends that I've made over the past year have been so inspirational to me in my journey through debate. So thank you so much. And finally, for my past captains, I want to thank Kiran Krishnamurthy, my freshman year. I'm thankful that he didn't cut me in the first place, but he gave me so many words of encouragement to help me go through debate and understand that I was good enough to compete on a higher enough level. And Sukum Kang, he was my captain last year. Thank you for hearing my advice, my arguments, anything that I wanted to get done. You were always open to lending an ear for me. So I'm eternally thankful for all that you've done for me. So I'd also like to thank my parents as well. Without them, I'm sure I wouldn't even be having an online debate in the first place because I wouldn't have a computer. So they've done so much for me in this activity and I wouldn't be here without them. And finally, I want to thank my partner, Marcus. This is his last round and it's been an enjoyable 2 years for us.
And he's
When
forfeiting
Marcus
it.
first joined the debate team from Kenston, Ohio to university school, I was very hesitant to partner with him. And our partnership was going to end after the first couple tournaments of my sophomore year and his junior year. But we've been through the most amount of highs and lows. And despite that, we've always stuck together. And it just shows to go how much a great guy Marcus is. He's willing to do anything and he's willing to put everything on the line for you. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to meet Marcus in the first place. And I'm so happy that he's done well in his career and he's a good human being and he's a good person for doing this. So Marcus, if you want to say any other thank yous, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. I just want to say thank you to my parents who encouraged me to start debate in the first place and financing such an expensive event. Again, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Paik for allowing us to debate nationally and giving us this opportunity. Our prep group for TOC, Nathan, David, and Sandeep, our calls have been some of the funniest and most nonsense I've wasted over the last 3 weeks. And then all of our prep groups this year, Strake and Hackley as well. You've been instrumental in giving us arguments and just being good friends. And then Ananth, we've gone through it all, like you've said, and I'm glad we've stuck through it to make it here to TSC finals. I wanted to thank the judges as well throughout the tournament who've judged us.
Hang on. So these are kids, right? So these are useful idiots. Basically when they find out, okay, so it's not as though when they're teaching this stuff in school, it's not as though they don't allude to capitalism. They do allude to it, but it's they drop the word every now and again, but they don't really explain it like I explain it. Where these kids really end up getting indoctrinated and becoming more true believers for the ideology is in college. Okay? In college, they say the quiet part out loud significantly more than they do in K through 12 schools. And so I wouldn't say that they have an understanding of what they believe because they're in high school. They're not that the brain is not developed to a place where they can understand it. And so don't think that these kids who are 16, 17, 18 years old are going to be we want to abolish capitalism all because that's not where they are. They get that in college. Does that make sense?
And just the people who are working at the tournament for running a very good tournament and spending your weekends to listen to high schoolers debate. Other than that, I think that's it. So I'm gonna give the stage to Dalton, and if they want to lead this conversation in any way, be my guest.
Yeah, so I think if y'all don't mind, I know we've been doing a lot of thank yous, but I want to thank one or two people real quick.
Oh my God, seriously?
First, I want to thank University, both y'all and also we debated YP earlier. Y'all, this is one of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me, and I think Rebecca can say the same. And I'm genuinely blown away by your generosity in this instance, and I'm so grateful to you for for taking this seriously and for really, really caring. And we need more people like you in this community. I also want to thank all of our other ELIMS opponents, Dirty Valley, College Prep. Did we debate anyone else? I'm forgetting.
No.
Blake. We didn't read this case against them. Y'all are all so kind to us.
Oh, and Maris, that one.
Yeah, Maris also to put up with this. So thank you all. I know it's hard to debate arguments like this, and y'all were incredibly upstanding and debated with the best of faith and cared as well. I want to thank my family, my mom, my dad, Leo for dealing with this for so many years. Having to listen to me talk about the IMF for 2 months must have been the worst thing in the world. And to all the people who I love in and out of debate, Coben, Evan, Kenny, even Oliver sometimes, Ruby, Alex, Claire, thank you.
That's a good idea,
all,
Sarah. That's
and
actually
I
a
think
good idea.
Rebecca
I'll
gave
take that under
most of the-
consideration. Thank you.
most of the thank yous, but just know that it means so much for me that y'all have been there the entire time. And yeah, so yeah, I've thought about this moment a lot. I've wanted it to have more of a hypothetical, but I do want to say that, like, and I've been telling this story throughout TOC, so sorry if any of y'all debated us before and are hearing it again, but my first ever tournament was Yale my freshman year. And I remember round 6, my opponents misgendered me, and the judge like didn't even blink. And to know that my last tournament of my career, this is the final round that we're having, means so much to me. So thank you all. Thank you again, university. Unless the judges or university, y'all have any particular ideas, I'd love to spend like maybe 15 minutes just having a conversation with anyone in the room who wants to participate, talking about some of the stuff that we talked about in constructive and talking about how we can make debate just a little bit better. Would that be okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
I guess we should probably start. Like, what are the things that the debate space should do to help your message get across?
Yeah, I don't want to say, like, I can definitely answer the question, but I don't, also, if there's anyone in the room, like, I know, and I don't want to call you out, but like Alex, we've been talking about some of this stuff. Anyone else who like wants to participate? I'll give the floor to anyone else before I've spoken too much. And if not,
I can start because JJ doesn't want to talk right now. So I have the great pleasure of debating University School MN basically every weekend because they are part of our local circuit. And I know Marcus specifically, I've had a few conversations with him about this, about how just over the time, like I've been in debate, I've definitely seen the community get better in terms of like the normalization of putting pronouns in places and stuff like that. But ultimately those are like very small impacts when, like, for example, like last year, one of my best friends went to go like coach the team that literally bullied me for a year. So like ultimately, as like adults that are graduating the community, you just have to like be good role models is what I would advocate for, and like concretely support trans debaters and like concretely don't support debaters that like put down trans debaters. Also, I know I look really red right now. I have a fever, so.
are you okay, Alex? Oh.
I can tell you the story about my almond poisoning, but that doesn't feel super relevant right now.
Okay, we'll talk after. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think also Alex makes a good point about like, I think that a lot of discourse about trans people becomes about like pronouns, which are super important. But I also think that like, I think people can think that that's like a sort of replacement for other kinds of advocacy. So, for example, something I would point out is like one, and Alex kind of alluded to this, I think hiring decisions need to be better. And this doesn't go out to y'all university. I know this is not up to you at all, but in general, for like the people who are watching this round, for the people who run the TOC who might also like run camps and stuff, I think one, doing background checks, that's something that like I think so few camps do. Making sure that you're doing your due diligence on like what influence have these kids created, because trust me, there are kids.
So what you're seeing right now is they are developing a list of demands. And this is something that socialists do with every single struggle sessions. I don't know that I've actually heard people make this point explicitly, but I'm going to make it explicitly because this became very clear to me at the socialism conference. Struggle sessions are not just about getting people to bend the knee to you within the struggle session. Struggle sessions are about creating and putting pressure to get a list of demands. Every socialist organization, every socialist cause has an explicit list of demands of things that they want to change. And usually those things that they want to change are about the system. Okay. So it's not just about making people feel uncomfortable, it's about getting people to do something. What we're seeing here is they're starting to develop through this struggle session a list of demands that they are then going to make of the high school debate like governing body to say, if you don't do X, Y, B, and Z, then, we're going to keep effing up your debates, essentially.
Kids' names were like, if you go to like most debaters and you're like, oh, this kid, like I'm hiring this kid, they'll be like, oh, there are some things we need to talk about. I also think like when it comes to sort of in-person stuff, something that can be really helpful for like tournament directors and stuff and for coaches, like make sure that, especially if you have trans kids in your team, like you're looking and making sure that they're gender neutral bathrooms, that they're single stall bathrooms, that dorming and like rooming situations aren't uncomfortable. And same thing at camp. Like I spent a lot of years at camp, like in a single by myself, like prepping for 12 hours a day or whatever. And like that was better than the alternative, which is like being with the girls, but it isn't ideal.
Yeah, also just re-inclusion on like your teams. Like you should like I wasn't captain of my team. Like this is my senior year and I wasn't captain of my team. And I think like one of the bigger problems on my team this year was there was definitely a time when like the university school underclassmen were better at respecting like my pronouns and my identity as like a not cis person than like many people on my own team. And I like genuinely think that that is because a lot of them were scared that I was going to like read theory on them. And it just felt a little odd to be like more respected by people that weren't on my team than people that were. And so I think like as far as making people included on your own team go, like be sure that you're being like very respectful to everyone and just like, I don't know, yourself. There's not really a message here, but
oh no, I thought it was a good message. Also I know it can be hard to contribute. Don't worry, y'all, this won't go on for much longer. I know it's been a long day, but I'd also say if you have me on Facebook or anything like that, if y'all want to like message me anything because you don't want to participate on this live stream or whatever, which is fair. I can also say anything that y'all like perhaps want to say. I will say something that came up today that was a really good point that we hadn't thought about was when we debated university YP, Abraham and Daniel pointed out in
Thank you,
particular
Token
that we
Fan.
could
I appreciate it. Thank you for
provide
the support.
anonymous opt-outs and pointed out the importance of that. And so I think that can also be something that in general you can do to be more inclusive. Yeah, and is there anyone else who either has ideas or wants to ask questions? You don't have to be trans at all. Just literally contribute whatever you want. The judges as well are welcome.
No one wants to say
I think I
anything.
have something to say. So I remember Daniel and Abraham and the rest of the university school team were on like FaceTime during like we were listening to the RFD of your octas round. I remember, and I think what's really important is that it's important to recognize that debate is not about winning an argument. It's about making sure everyone feels okay and making sure everyone feels safe. So when that's hindered upon, I think that's when debate becomes essentially useless in the first place. So it was really, really eye-opening to see those passionate RFDs given by the judges, to see that debate really doesn't matter about the IMF. Like, who cares? Like, what matters is like those people who need to be safe within the round itself. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. I also think there's an interesting question about like, and Rebecca, I think we talked about this, like what kind of arguments do you need? And like, I think a big question people asked us was like, why does this need to be in the debate space? Like, we understand it's an important issue, but why does it need to be in rounds?
Or like competitive too.
Yeah. And like, I think the idea is that like, I know that there's like a lot of reasons why progressive argumentation is bad and inaccessible, and I think we should work to make sure that our progressive argumentation of any kind is as accessible as possible. And I don't think that like trans liberation and debate requires it, but I do think that like there is something to be said for like the kind of arguments that we make in debate, and making debates focus on the most real and tangible type of violence possible, at least until people start to realize it a little bit more can be useful.
I also tend to not buy the argument that like progressive debate is super inaccessible, because my partner, not Claire, my debate partner, my romantic partner, does policy, and like they like run a lot of arguments that are like not traditional policy advocacies, and like Ohio policy isn't big on the national circuit, so it's not like, you know, they're going to like NAT tournaments every weekend, but it's still like trickled down to the small world of Ohio policy and like made a difference in those rounds. So I think like,
Well, yeah, because the debate is over. The debate is over. The debate was over. The debate was over at the very beginning when the two girls from Dalton, one of whom doesn't want to be called a girl. Basically, what happened is the two girls from Dalton, one of them, the Asian one, got misgendered, got pissed off about it, and so they decided to hijack the entire debate and make it about trans people when the topic of this debate was not supposed to be about trans people. They hijacked it. The two boys just conceded. That's what happened. They just conceded it. And now what they're doing is they're using their time to struggle session to talk about how debate can be made better for trans people. That's where we are. So yeah, they're just making statements because the debate is over. And now they're doing the struggle session piece where they're coming up with their list of demands.
like even though there might be a barrier to access, it's still a good, important thing to do. And ultimately, the way to like break down that barrier to access is to make this type of argumentation like more widespread.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Marcus. I didn't mean.
Oh yeah, I guess.
And by the way, for people who weren't here earlier, these two girls, this one is saying she's oppressed because she was misgendered in debate. These two girls go to one of the most expensive, the most elite private schools in the country, which is Dalton.
I guess I had a question on like, Anant and I like, we knew you like our team hit the argument like, and Anant and I like, if you were debating against an argument like this, how do you respond to it without it like coming off as demeaning, or like how do we like responsibly and respectfully interact with these arguments?
Yeah, it's okay. Do you want to answer? Or do you want? You can go. Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we tell people to engage with it is sort of like you don't have to negate anyone's identity to respond to these sorts of arguments, right? Like you can respond to sort of, I guess the method would be the idea. So for instance, say, why is protest ineffective? Why is this particular type of protest ineffective? And I think someone I want to give a shout out to is our round one against Marist OW. Lauren and Anthony read really, really good arguments against this case, and it helped us make it a lot better because they really really tested it from all directions, and they read a bunch of arguments about like the importance of representation and about why these sorts of arguments shouldn't be in competitive spaces. And I think that that's sort of the strategy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree.
Is probably most viable.
Yeah.
I wanted to add really quickly that I don't know, just as a trans person in this debate space, I wish that the energy it takes to be trans in the debate space was better respected, i.e., for example, calling out getting misgendered takes a lot of energy, and it's something that's really tiring, and it's something that you don't want to keep doing after it happens. And I wish that people in the debate space would see that and just see how hard it is, just not even to call things out, just to exist in a space where it does not feel like you should exist. And I think that even though a cis person won't be able to fully understand what it feels like, understanding that that is a feeling that a lot of trans people experience will help you be more compassionate, cognizant, and a better ally to trans people in this space.
So people are pointing out that this guy up here doesn't look too happy. The guy in the upper right isn't happy about what happened. No, he isn't. I don't think they were expecting this. And you're right. I mean, I don't think they were expecting this. And so like this guy right here, this is his very last high school debate. I mean, some might say it's like just a debate club, but like when you're in high school, these things are a big deal, right? This is his last high school debate. And they have probably done months of prep work for this debate. Like, I mean, really intensive prep work. This is the most elite debate competition in the country. They've done months of prep work. They came prepared to talk about the IMF. The other team hijacked the debate and basically forced them into a position where they had to forfeit. And this is his last high school debate of his debating career. Milo says he's probably a cis man and should shut up and be quiet. I mean, that's probably what he thinks. And when you think about it like this, it's no wonder there are like incel communities that that gravitate, like all like the group. Like it's no wonder. It's no wonder you have people like Andrew Tate. It's no wonder that you have people like, I mean, Jordan Peterson basically built his career off of making young men feel good about themselves and helping them to find purpose in a world that was just shitting on them all the time. Like the backlash to this type of bullshit is real. And I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I think it's sad, but remember guys, the goal of the woke left is not this is where the right gets it wrong, because the right doesn't actually listen to the left, and so they make assumptions. They're like, the poor men are being abused and therefore the left wants to get rid of all men and they just want a matriarchy and all that stuff. That's not what the left wants. The left wants to get rid of all gender. All gender. They don't want men to exist. They don't want women to exist. They just attack men and women in different ways. So with like, this is an attack on men, right? But if you look at trans women and women's sports, that's an attack on women. Because it's not that they want women to be better than men. They just want to get rid of all gender entirely. That is the goal of queer Marxism, is to abolish the gender binary. They want everyone to be non-binary. And people get confused about this because they don't make attacks on the specific genders in the same way at the same time. And so people see something like this, they're like, well, they obviously want to erase all men. And then they see something like that swimmer in the NCAA, that the trans woman swimmer that won the NCAA tournament. I can't remember their name right now. It's eluding me, but you guys know who I'm talking about. They see something like trans women and women's sports and they're like, they just want to erase all women. They want to erase both. It's about both. So every single time the right makes the argument that they hate men and they want to erase men, or they hate women and they want to erase women, or they hate lesbians and they want to erase lesbians, you're shooting yourselves in the foot and you're giving the left what they want, because you're showing that you don't actually understand their arguments. They want to erase all gender, not just men, not just women, everyone.
Yeah, this is also a shout out to my lovely partner, Claire Mari, who probably over 10 times through this season, bore the responsibility of reading misgendering theory in rounds for us after I would get just like clapped in summary many times, like just straight up.
And by the way, guys, I'm going to be very honest. When you guys play this pronoun bullshit game and you insist on using people's names that they don't want to be called, you're playing into what the left wants. You're giving them what they want. They want you to call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner. Every time you call Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, they use it against you. Every single time you insist on calling someone he when they want to be called she, they're using it against you. Because remember, they don't want any of this to exist. But if you're going to give them ammo to say, look at those evil transphobes, they're destroying everything, you don't want to be part of their team. Like, it's the bullshit with the right playing these games with names and pronouns that causes situations like this, because you guys don't think 3 steps ahead of what they're doing and you don't understand how they're using it against you. Well, no, it's not that it's not essential, Renan. It's that they will only achieve gender equity when they get rid of gender. The only way to achieve equity and to get rid of the the patriarchy, essentially, is to eliminate gender entirely. When everyone is non-binary, everyone is the same.
Being misgendered like 7 times in a row happened many times. So like if you're a cis debater and you're like partners with a trans debater, part of like your role in as being an ally, as being a partner of a trans debater, is not just to like, pat us on the back when we're like sad or upset. It's to like take concrete steps to make a debate round safer, like my partner constantly reading theory, or like Rebecca reading this argument with JJ.
Yeah, no, I 100% want to agree with both of y'all. I especially think Sean makes a really good point of like Rebecca will
See, this is a good strategy. Instead of you can just use their name. Just use their name. You don't have to use the pronouns if you really want to dig in your heels and die on that hill. I think it's a stupid hill to die on, but if you want to die on that hill, fine. Just don't use the pronouns, but you can use their name. And then they can't complain, and they can't use it against you, and they can't call you an evil bigot, and they can't paint you as something that you're not. There are ways around this.
tell you, like this tournament, when we had our semis round against Blake, and this isn't at all to say the rounds before were like bad or anything like that. In fact, I enjoyed them more than almost any PF rounds and learned more from them than almost any PF round I've ever been in. But our semis round against Blake, where they went for like Russia extinct.
I feel like I literally have to answer this question every day of my life, and this is why I'm beating my head against the wall. Number 1, I literally wrote a book with checklists telling you what to do. There are 4 chapters in my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life, that have literal checklists telling you what to do. So that's one resource that you have available to you. But bigger picture, I really wish that the right would stop bitching and complaining and feeling sorry for themselves every single time I say, you guys need to be smarter and more strategic about how you're fighting the left. Because here's what happens. And I'm in a pissy mood. And so this is just the way it's going to go. It's my stream. I'll say what I want. Every single time I say, you need to be better and smarter about how you're fighting the left, you say, well, you don't want us to do anything. You don't want us to do anything. Why can't we do what we want to do? Why can't we do? Why can't we do it our way? That's literally what happens. Every time. So if you are going to reject the idea that there are smart, strategic ways to fight back, which I have covered ad nauseum on this channel, which I have written about on my Substack for free numerous times, which I had a podcast about that I haven't updated in a while, but there are a lot of back episodes that you can go and listen to that literally tells you what to do. When I have literally written a book with fucking checklists telling you what to do. And every single day of my life, I have to hear that when I say you guys are fighting in a way that's going to lose because you're not fighting strategically, you're not actually doing anything, you're just responding in the way that the left wants you, and then you then throw a temper tantrum saying, I just don't understand why we can't do things our way. Do you understand how this is infuriating after a while? I've given you guys strategies for years. I've given you checklists. I've given you podcasts. I've given you articles. I used to discuss this on Twitter all the time. I have given you videos. I've given you literally thousands of videos telling you here is how you fight back against them. You guys don't listen because you want to feel sorry for yourselves, and feeling sorry for yourselves is what got you in this position in the fucking first place. So until you guys are going to behave like adults and show up, I will no longer feel bad when you guys lose. I haven't felt bad at you guys losing in a while. I feel bad for me. I feel bad for other people who take this seriously, but I don't feel bad for anyone who wants to come and have a temper tantrum that you can't use the strategies that you want to use because they suck and don't work anyway. Why are you guys so fucking committed to using strategies that don't work? They don't work. The book banning bullshit just got overruled in court the other day. It didn't work. I told you for 2 years the book banning bullshit wasn't going to work. I was ignored. I was ostracized. I was shit on by Moms for Liberty. I was blacklisted from things for saying the book banning wasn't going to work. What happened 2 days ago? The book banning thing got struck down in a Michigan court. You guys want to use strategies that are loser strategies, that are inevitably going to lead to your defeat, that are just digging the hole deeper, that have already been dug. You want to throw a fucking hissy fit when people try to get you to do something differently that's actually productive. And then you just want to whine and complain and say, well, I guess we're all losing anyway. And all elections are rigged. And there's no point in even voting anymore because all elections are rigged, even though you guys didn't do anything to actually fix the system at all. Have I made my point?
And we went for like financial crisis. I just had to take a breath and be like, oh my God, I'm just so glad that this round didn't come down to like some disagreement about like being trans or something like that, because reading these kinds of arguments, whether it's misgendering theory or talking about your personal experience, is like so hard, and it's so draining, and that's why it's so kind of built to concede. And yeah, also Rebecca's gonna be mad at me after for not thanking her, so thank you for supporting me through everything, and you're delightful.
I think also it's just that not even reading like misgendering theory is hard, but then it comes to the question was like you may not even win the argument at that point. You're still very likely to lose the argument. It sort of invalidates you at some points. I remember at Strake, I believe Marcus and I hit something close to some feminism, or misgendering, and it's just like so painful to watch like people lose that argument just because of debating skills rather than identity itself. So that's something that also needs to change.
This is what most struggle sessions really are. With kids that have been fully indoctrinated into this ideology, this is what they are. Because those kids, the boys cannot push back against the girls. Not in the situation that they've developed for themselves. They can't push back on them. So this is what it looks like.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm Alex's partner who JJ and Alex have
Oh
referenced,
my
and I have,
God. Are you fucking shitting me? Okay, so that girl with like the longer hair that is obviously a girl but is like pretending to be non-binary or something, she came in and she wasn't even involved on either debate team, and she's like, my partner this, my partner that, my partner this, my partner has helped me through all these times in which I've been misgendered, and now we have to hear from the romantic partner of the queer non-binary, definitely not cisgendered white girl that was here a minute ago that wasn't even involved in this debate at all. Like, this is crazy.
asked me to contribute my thoughts. My thoughts as a cis debater who is partners with a non-cis debater and friends with other non-cis debaters who's been in awkward, uncomfortable, traumatic, and stressful situations like they're talking about when debating arguments about identity, and has dealt with the effects outside of the round, that the best thing that you can do if you don't know what to do is to just listen to your friend or your partner or your opponent and listen to what they're telling you and not immediately dismiss their experiences, and do everything in your power to make them feel safer, because ultimately if you're not safe you don't gain any education from the round.
Yeah, and I also think that the point made earlier about like misgendering and sort of like right, like Claire's saying, right, like when you hit one of these arguments, it's like you've done, and I don't even mean like our kind of argument. You don't have to concede against our argument. You're just awesome if you do, but like you can answer that. If someone calls your behavior out and says that's a reason to lose, if it's a person talking about their genuine experience, like I really think that, and I know this is maybe a little bit controversial, but you should concede. Like, I think that the best
You
thing to
should just
do in that
concede.
instance where you misgender someone or do violence against someone in that way or make them uncomfortable.
What the hell? What the hell? Why did that reload? Fuck. I don't know where they were.
Girls, but it isn't ideal.
Weekend because they are part of our local circuit.
Matters is the way kids feel.
Hang on, I'm trying to find where I was. I don't
It's
know
really
why that.
tiring.
I don't know why that just reloaded. I apologize, guys. I'm trying to find where we were.
Weekend because they are
Probably college prep to be debate anyway.
Like my parents as well. Without them, I'm
To know that my last tournament of my career.
That was we watched that already. No, we watched that.
identity itself. So
That's wrong, but like also
Because what was happening was actually really important, and we like it pieced out in the middle of it. They were basically saying, like, if you misgender someone, you should just concede the debate and say you lost.
Like it relies a lot on adults because I think people forget that, like, especially for first year outs, like y'all are adults. Like y'all might be like 19 or 20. If someone reads like misgendering, if someone
there it is.
Marcus and I hit something close to some feminism, or
gendering theory in rounds for us after I would get just like clapped in summary many times, like just straight up being misgendered.
Mad at me after for not thanking her. So thank you for supporting me through everything, and you're delightful.
I think also it's just that not even reading like misgendering theory is hard, but then
if someone reads like misgendering, if someone misgenders someone in the round that makes them feel unsafe, whatever.
There it is.
We're not evaluating the debate. We're just going to say no. Like, okay, I don't care about a high school debate round. I care about kids feeling safe. And
yeah, I also think like this is something that I think our judge, I forget what round, said this in her RFD and was like, I think really powerful, is that, yeah, like what matters is the way kids feel in the activity. Yeah, I've loved the competitiveness of it.
No, this is not how they got to the finals. They just did this at the finals to make a basically put pressure on them to get what they wanted. This was not how they got to the finals.
And yeah, I try to win rounds, and we've read tons of substance arguments and had like lots of fun and learned a ton. But ultimately, like if kids are feeling unsafe, I think it should be the burden on everyone in the round, whether it's your partner who does something, calling out your partner, or if your partner's, you know, being harmed, stand up for your partner, yourself, whatever. And yeah, I also think that comes for like the bigger thing of like who we're hiring to judge at tournaments, who we're allowing to judge at tournaments, making sure, because for example, like with misgendering, I know that like misgendering theory is like a norm and somewhat, but also if you have a judge that you can't read that in front of or whatever, they won't take that into account because they, you know, don't have experience with it. It's not their fault. But also then I think like a person who's been misgendered is forced to then continue through the round that's become unsafe with no real exit option unless they want to concede, which doesn't seem fair. So yeah, I think that's also
yeah. Like we read this case round one. Round two, we had a delightful person judge our round, but who misgendered me in their RFD. And it was like, oh, well, there's not really anything I can do here. So I think it relies both on like debaters, like y'all concede if you do stuff that's wrong, but like also like it relies a lot on adults because I think people forget that, like, especially for first year outs, like y'all are adults. Like y'all might be like 19 or 20 or 21, but you're still adults in the same way that like teachers are adults to high schoolers, right? So like there's some like 16-year-old kid in there around who's like, hey, I feel unsafe. And you as like a 19-year-old are like, sorry, you dropped RBIs are bad. Like there's something missing there.
I think it also poses a question for coaches that are teaching
So
kids how to respond to those.
it's my impression, and if anyone has experience in high school debate, let me know if I'm wrong, because I never did debate club. That, like, my school is so small, we didn't have debate club or anything like this. I didn't go to a rich private school like Dalton. I went to a shitty public school in rural Vermont. Okay, but it is my impression. So when they say the first year outs, they're adults. Yes, I have heard of Christian, and I don't talk to Christian anymore because Christian decided to associate with people that he really shouldn't have. And so, I have heard of him. I don't talk to him anymore. For reasons. All right. Anyway, what I was saying is when they're saying first year out, they mean like first year out of high school debate, which it's my understanding that once you leave high school debate and you go on to college, you can then be like a high school debate judge. And so, like, the first year out, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, like, these are high school debaters, and then they have these judges that those judges look really young? Like, when you go to college and you aren't in high school debate anymore, you can come back and be a judge for debate. And what they're saying is that the judges, who are the adults, should be making debate safe for the kids because people are being misgendered and that makes it unsafe for them. Oh no, they're not telling the kids that. They haven't been telling the kids that for generations. I mean, I can't even tell adults that. So you think they're telling high school kids that? Of course not.
Those theory arguments in the first place, and are telling kids how to win when somebody reads trigger warning theory. And I think that's a question that every coach that does that needs to ask themselves. Like, why do you think that's okay to prepare kids to be violent like that?
They're calling it violence.
Yeah.
They're saying speech is violence.
I wanted to add really quickly. Oh, sorry, Rebecca. Yeah, I want to add really quickly that I don't think that judges should be accepting apologies on behalf of trans debaters. And by that, I mean, I guess I can give a personal anecdote. A while ago, I was at a tournament and I was in a round against some very scary, older, cloudy debaters. And first I got misgendered 7 times in one speech. Then I got gaslit into being told it didn't happen. And we read a voting issue on it and went for it. And I left right after the round. And after I left, the debaters we were debating apologized to the judge.
Bro, if you think getting dressed down on a YouTube live stream when you have literally an anonymous account and are whining in my fucking chat is violence, then you are way too thin-skinned to be here. I'm going to be very honest. If you think a YouTube dressing down when you're being a whiny little bitch in my chat is literal violence, then you don't belong here, bro. Go to the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire will kiss your ass every single day of your life. You will never hear anything you don't want to hear. You will never be exposed to any hard truths. They will tell you you're winning. Tim Pool, go to Tim Pool. Tim Pool will tell you you are winning every single day. He will whisper whatever sweet nothings he needs to whisper in your ears to get you to give him money and super chats. There are other options available to you, bro. If you think speech is violence, GTFO.
For what happened to me. And then we lose. And the RFD is that the judge believed that my opponent's apology was genuine, which is confusing to me because, one, I wasn't apologized to. But primarily, I don't understand why cis judges feel that it is their right to decide what is okay, or when it becomes okay, when an apology is good enough, when it becomes unjustifiably violent what has happened to a trans debater. I don't think that those decisions should be made by cis people, or at least minimally. So yeah.
Did you guys hear that? He was like, decisions about trans people shouldn't be made by cis people. Because he got misgendered a couple times. Who knows? I wonder what his pronouns are. His voice is very deep, but we can't see him. So maybe I don't know what his pronouns are. I'm sorry, I'm probably misgendering him right now. So I apologize for that, but I don't know what the pronouns are.
Yeah, I think we should defer to trans people more.
I like, oh, for just like first as a disclaimer, this is my friend's account. I'm not Anish. But I think that there's like a really important conversation stemming from that about just the power that, like, all sorts of power dynamics in the debate community. And of course, like, there is just this idea of why judges get to control these sort of conversations around like trans debaters that I think a lot of people have already addressed. But I think it's also like debaters themselves in the community, even though obviously most of us are minors, there's this really big disparity between how so many cloudy or debaters who are well connected in the circuit act and portray themselves as allies to the trans community, and then go into like DMs or group conversation.
So I have a question and I have something to say. So people are bringing up the use of the term cloudy. I don't know what cloudy means. Does anyone know what cloudy means? That seems to be like a debate subculture thing. But more broadly speaking, so they just use the term ally. Ally, and I need to write about this for the Substack behind a paywall. Ally is, well, I guess I'm giving the covert term for free, like, but whatever. Ally is the entry level point to comrade. Ally is what they call people when they're trying to make people a comrade. That they obviously can't call them comrade because that would be a little overt. But that's what they're doing. They invented the term ally as like it's the training ground for full membership in the party. I think cloudy, shady, shifty, not straightforward, like obfuscating. Maybe that's what they mean. I don't know. It kind of seems like they're using it as slang though. But I don't know.
And are the exact opposite. And I think that I'm pretty sure not everyone in these like big prep groups or conversations is actively like transphobic, but for people who are like genuine allies, or for anyone who wants to like kind of confront your hypocrisy and step up a little bit, there's a lot of power in just speaking up. And especially if you are cis, speaking up and actively confronting people. Like people have talked about how like partners can like step up for their trans debaters, and how judges can step up for the debaters they're judging. But I think by far the most powerful way that people make concrete changes is when their friends call them out. And yeah, there's just like I've seen and I've heard so much disparity between how people even just like talk on public discourse and like read arguments in rounds versus the way that people treat trans debaters in like private conversations. And there just needs to be a lot more like accountability there, I think.
I also think, to clarify, I've heard so many people be like, yeah, call out your transphobic friends. But like, quite frankly, we've done enough calling out. Like, it's not call out your transphobic friends. It's kick your transphobic friends out of your prep group. Don't hire transphobic coaches.
Yeah, one thing too that like I wanted to add off of the, I don't know, not Anish, whoever else was speaking, is like, so I come from like a really low resource team, right? Like me and my partner. And I think that there's a lot of, and kind of the converse of like what Anish is saying, there's a lot of low resource debaters that become intentionally or unintentionally really transphobic because they get into this mindset of like, you know, I don't know how to handle Ks, right? I don't have the resource to do Ks, right? So them running this against me is like unfair, right? It's unfair. When it's like, how can somebody else's trauma be like unfair? And I think when we get into like conversations like this, I think there needs to be like a re-education, which I've certainly like experienced throughout the past like this year around like what progressive debate means around like identity issues and like how that needs to be a norm even in like really low resource environments with like really rural circuits. Because also like one thing that like is a thing too is like there's trans people on local circuits too, right? Where like they don't know like theory or they don't know K's, right? So like I think that it goes both ways to what Not Anish was saying, that like everybody just needs to think about like not like as somebody who is low resource, like not using the fact that you're low resources to get out of other people's trauma, right?
Yeah, forgive me for butting in, but I just wanted to refer back to something that Sean mentioned a little earlier about cis people sort of being the judge, jury, and executioner whenever they're judging. I also agree, like that practice is really, really terrible. And I just I find it like really disheartening to see like in people's paradigms that as long as you just like point something out, the judge will take care of it. I think that that sort of rhetoric should just not be in paradigms because I think that that sort of rhetoric places like all the sort of power into the judge's hands. And it implies that, don't worry, nothing violent's going to happen to you. The judge will take care of it. But again, there are instances like Sean's situation where something violent did happen.
They keep referring to speech as violence, and this is why like I honestly like get really pissed off when people even joke about me having a tone they don't like is violence, because when you joke about the fact that someone having a tone you don't like is violence, you're doing exactly the same thing as these kids are. You're doing exactly the same things as these kids' teachers are. Speech is not violence, guys. If you want to stand up for something, instead of like playing these bullshit pronoun games where you guys are like, we're gonna own the lips. If you want to stand up for something that matters, say, speech is not violence, motherfucker. And I don't care what speech it is. I don't care. I don't care if college students are protesting for a cause that I find despicable. I can argue with them on the points that they're making. I can argue with them on whether or not Hamas is a group worthy of support. I personally would say that Hamas is not a group worthy of support. But you can argue on that point, right? But where you go, and Dave Rubin has literally done this, a lot of conservative influencers have literally done this. When you go to the point of saying their speech should be made illegal because their speech that I don't like is violence against me, that's where you've jumped the shark. And I don't know why every single free speech activist isn't up in Dave Rubin's fucking face saying, you're after you were the guy that for years said we should be protecting speech and having civil conversations and having open debates. You're now literally saying that speech you find despicable is violence. How fucking dare you pull a full fucking Greta Thunberg? How dare you? How dare you throw all of the values that you claim to care about under the bus when it was politically convenient for you to do so, and literally saying speech is fucking violence? Every single person on the conservative right now that is calling the speech of those college students that have ideas that they don't like, they're calling that violence and calling for it to be outlawed and calling for their programs to be defunded. Ron DeSantis is playing into this shit too. Ron DeSantis literally defunded the programs of these college students, these college students at Florida universities, defunded their Palestinian groups because he argued that speech was violence. That's your good Republican candidate for president? bullshit. I said Ron DeSantis was an authoritarian statist who was infringing on free speech from the very beginning of this Disney bullshit starting. And Ron DeSantis just keeps proving me right time and time and time and time and time again. Let that be a lesson to you. Everyone who told me I was wrong when I said Ron DeSantis is violating the First Amendment with this Disney bullshit. I had so many people in my chat that day basically reeing and screaming, how dare you say Ron DeSantis is violating the First Amendment against Disney? Well, guess what? He's doing it again. And if they'll do it with speech that they don't like, that you might agree with them on, guess what? At some point they're going to do it with speech that you do like. At some point they're going to try to censor your speech too. That's why we stand up and say speech is not violence. Even the most despicable ideas should still receive First Amendment protections, because when you protect the worst possible speech, the most deplorable possible speech, speech that makes your stomach turn, speech that promotes your greatest enemies, that's when you protect speech for everyone, and you don't do it otherwise. So if you want to stand up for something, stand up for that.
And the judge obviously didn't take care of it and just accepted an apology on their behalf. And so I think that if there are any like judges here, obviously there are, but for the judges here, if there's any sort of language in your paradigms that indicates that you are going to be the arbiter of what's correct from a safety standpoint, I think that you should, like obviously there should be a baseline of what, baseline of like safety that like you basically check back on what you as like whatever identity you might I guess identify with. Like there should just be like debaters should reserve the ability to call out violence that they experience, and it shouldn't just be a situation in which judges are the only people that are dictating what's right or wrong. Like obviously it's like good for judges to like call out like people saying slurs and stuff, but when there are more individual forms of violence that like say cis people or like white people, like all of these different identities that are more privileged, there are obviously forms of violence that they can't recognize. And I think that it's important to enable debaters to empower themselves to challenge those things. And there shouldn't be any sort of like punishment or stigma around like reading arguments like content warning theory or misgendering. I think that there shouldn't be any sort of stigma, even though there is, around reading those arguments. And I think that judges should be especially open to hearing those arguments because it requires them to be, I guess, it requires them to reflect on like the conceptions that they have of what's violent and what's really not.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really good point as well about, and in a moment I also want to get to some stuff that people Facebook messaged me before we let you all go live your lives. But this point about
I'm going to
judges
very
also
soon.
sort of applies
Yeah,
to
there
tournament
will be coming
directors.
soon.
Like for instance, the TOC, I think it's a really hard tournament to run. It's a really good tournament. I do wish we'd gotten more than a few strikes, and not to read this argument, not to read progressive arguments or to have tech judges, but purely because we were in a position where like we were looking at the judge pool and there were many judges who, more than 5, who we wouldn't feel comfortable debating in front of purely because we didn't feel safe, or like they would make the round feel like a comfortable space. I think
I don't feel comfortable being judged by judges because they sit there and they listen to me, and that makes things unsafe. That's where we're at, guys. The most elite debate competition in the country.
I think, for instance, like the Sunbite tournament did a really good job of this year, of like you had so many strikes, the percentage of rounds that like it just, and I know this seems sort of like a silly issue, but I just do think that like it can make rounds feel so much safer, even if the judge is a community judge or isn't like so experienced, like just making sure that you're having judges who will.
When a judge is just like kind and understanding, it like
Yeah,
changes
we
the
just
entire.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, and also to bring up sort of 2 things that and anyone can talk about this if like that folks Facebook messaged me. First is a question about is like a framework argument, so like you know you should be topical, things like that. a valid way of contesting these sorts of arguments, like the one we read in this round, where is that anti-queer? And the other question is about, I guess, what are people's thoughts on like debaters who answer these sorts of performances with the arguments that like the debaters like commodifying the ballot or doing it for their own personal gain. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts on those, but those are just two things that people asked about or messaged about, and yeah, that or anything else.
I just like to add something. So my partner goes by she, they pronouns, and it's in her tab room. And every time pairings get sent out, all the debaters and judges who put in their pronouns into tab room, it's on that email. But I don't think in any tournaments we've gone through, anyone has actually addressed them using them. And I think that it's really easy to just look a little bit past who you're debating in the pairings email and just kind of double check the pronouns of everyone. Like it takes literally 3 seconds to do. It can make someone feel 100 times more safe. So I really encourage everyone, including judges and debaters, to put your pronouns into tab room and to actually look at your opponents and judges' pronouns.
So I just want to remind people, got a few new people coming in saying, some people saying they didn't get notifications on the stream. Guys, just as a reminder, I do go live Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. On Saturdays, we do Socialism Saturday at 6 p.m. If you would like an email notification about what we're going to be talking about prior to the stream, you can sign up on one of my Substacks, not my main one, but one of them on thecult.substack.com. And if you sign up for that, you'll get an email notification prior to me going live saying, here's what I'm going to be talking about. Here's what we're going to be watching. So you can decide whether or not you want to come to the stream, because of course, YouTube notifications don't always do their job. But please make sure you have mounted the like button for me. Please do make sure you have subscribed to the channel if you're not already. And, no matter what the notification says, I am live at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Thank you.
I just wanted to bounce off of that. Also, I'm not Will. Shout out Will for giving me the account there. But I just wanted to say, like bouncing off of this, like mentioning pronouns, it's really
this is like hilarious. It's like, now that they've conceded the debate because they don't want to be transphobic, random people are just showing up to the debate to like weigh in and talk about how they've been discriminated against because someone misgendered them and speech is violence and all that stuff. It's like people's girlfriends are showing up. Like it's kind of like, you know what it is? I'm about to make an awful analogy. Has anyone seen the movie Mother? What is his name? Same guy that did Requiem for a Dream. Darren Aronofsky. Has anyone seen the movie Mother? It's a great movie if you've never seen it. It's also a really fucked up movie. But in the movie Mother, I'm not going to give away what the allegory is, but essentially, it's this couple that live in this random house in the country, and people just start showing up to the house. And it's like, first there's just a couple people that show up to the house, and then a couple more people show up to the house, and before long, like the whole fucking like town has showed up to the house. But it's a great movie. You should watch it. But like, you need to mentally prepare yourself for that movie. I saw it in the movie theaters, and I was basically in a state of shock the entire time. And it's hard to shock me, but the analogy still works.
really like I don't understand why it's very difficult for the community to like really just start respecting pronouns. I was like pretty bothered. Obviously I wasn't in the debate and I wasn't like directly affected by like the decision or the judge's comments, but I noticed a judge that I felt like some of the remarks that this judge made were pretty disrespectful. And I noticed that a lot of the rhetoric that the judge used in making these disrespectful comments had a lot of gendered language in it in a debate that was about like gender and a lot had to do with gender, and I just think that it was unfortunate that the judge probably has no idea that their actions were violent or that their actions were like incredibly disrespectful and rude to the debaters especially. But I think that, again, as a community, we should definitely be a lot more conscious of the way that our sort of words hold power, and we can use those words to do good, or obviously, as evidenced by numerous instances in this tournament and past, for bad.
I just like also want to add on to the pronouns really quick and now address what the one of the like questions I was talking about. I think for people who are like debating in rounds where your opponents are not disclosing their pronouns, I think it's like really important to try your best to default to just like gender neutral pronouns, because like me personally, I debated my entire career without disclosing my pronouns. And it's like if you're in a position where you like don't feel comfortable like disclosing in the first place and being out, then it's even harder for you as a debater to like fight back against being misgendered, because you like literally can't even point it out. Like you're just like stuck in this impossible sort of situation. And one thing that can really just make those
Hang on, for people who showed up a little late, Mom of Cat said gendered language in a debate about gender. This wasn't a debate about gender. This wasn't a debate about gender at all. And I would encourage people who showed up late at some point, maybe not right now, but like at some point, go back to the beginning of when the debate started. I think I started about 45 minutes into the stream with the actual viewing of the debate. This was not a debate about gender. This was supposed to be, this was the final round of the most elite high school debate competition in the country. And it was supposed to be a debate about the IMF. And I guess whether or not the IMF should be funded. But these two girls from Dalton, one of whom apparently is non-binary or something and was like misgendered in a debate one time, these two decided to hijack the debate entirely, make it about trans people being safe in debate, at which point these two, who was the team they were supposed to be debating about the IMF, just conceded. And they were like, we don't want to look transphobic, so we're not going to debate you. And at which point the debate was over. And now they're having a struggle session about how horrible debate was, how horrible the debate, like the high school debate like circuit is for trans people, and how debate can be made more safe for trans people.
Debaters feel safer, because like I personally know there are a lot of like closeted trans debaters who like just like don't have any kind of outlet to like even express that they were misgender. They kind of just like sit there and debate the round. Like it's so helpful to just like make at least one of their rounds feel a little bit safer that way. About like the commodification thing, personally I've never really like debated performance like arguments in general, but I like don't think that I just think it's a little bit weird for people to say that, oh, like you are trying to take advantage of your identity and like you are not allowed to like use your identity in a way that like helps you win rounds, because like at the end of the day it's your unique experience. Like I feel I'm generally not persuaded by these arguments online as to how talking about your own experiences and explaining the way that you interact with the debate space and using that as a way to like try and win rounds is problematic. I think that
she's literally saying that this person who's not on the screen right now is literally saying that she has no problem with it if a high school debater just shows up to a debate and says, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans, I should win the debate because I'm trans, and here's my trans lived experience, and now you need to concede to me because if you don't, you're transphobic. She literally just said, like, we should have no problem just using our identity as a crutch to help us win debates. You know, it's part of who we are. It's our lived experience. I don't know why we would have a problem with this.
That there's a lot of like silencing going on of like trans voices, and I think a lot of these like commodification arguments sometimes turn into just like ways to try and force trans people to not talk about the like nuances of how debate is really violent, or like try and force that out of the debate space, or like out of debate rounds and like into like discussions out of round that are much easier to just avoid or not confront directly.
I think also a lot of times, like especially with like arguments about queerness, but like this could also apply for a lot of other things, you're sort of put between a rock and a hard place when someone reads a commodification argument. Because like I know, for example, me and my partner read like a queer framing app on like the healthcare topic, and people would stand up and be like, "Oh, you're just commodifying the issue," and I'm like, "Okay, so do I list like the bad experiences I've had like in healthcare?" It just becomes a situation where you're forced to like either address the argument or out yourself, and addressing the argument is hard because like obviously commodification is bad. But I agree with not Anish that it is just a way to try and silence people. So maybe don't run commodifications response would be my advice.
I did want to speak to the concern about framework. I don't want to let it get washed away. Or T framework, topicality, make the debaters defend the resolution. I think that it's a question of how you read framework. I've had a lot of framework debates in LP, and there is a range of ways people go for it, from the ways in which non-topical AFs affect Black debaters, for example, or the ways in which, on a different argument, the ways in which topical debate can help us organize strategies to resolve the impacts of whatever the affirmative is. In this situation, probably something to do with me being trans. And in those debates, I didn't particularly feel like anything violent was happening to me. I mean, I obviously would make arguments as to why topicality is bad, but the rounds where I really felt like it was genuinely violent were the rounds where it was literally just like a blip storm of tricks and reasons why fairness isn't IVI and the silly engagement double bind. So I think it has to do with the ways in which you go for framework. Are you going for a framework because you genuinely want to test the model of the 1AC? Are you going for a framework because you want to create a better method for change? Or are you going for framework because you think that you can outspread a minority debater? So I think it has a lot to do with your intent and the ways in which you go for that argument, rather than like evaluating the argument in a vacuum.
This is a really great point, Milo. Adults taught them to do this. Every single thing that every single one of these kids is saying, either whether they're on camera or off, they have been taught to do this by adults. They have been taught to do this by adults that they trusted. They've been taught to do this by their teachers from the time they're 5 years old. They didn't pick this up off of TV. They picked this up in school with the people. Some of them, again, these two go to Dalton. That's a really expensive private school. That's not a public school, guys. Kids elicit struggle sessions when adults teach them to do struggle sessions. A lot of them, Banjo, are off camera, so they're like, because they're not on the debate team. So I don't know exactly why that is. It's a weird thing.
Oh, sorry. I think one thing too that like, I mean, it's like we had a judge tell us earlier in this tournament, which I just think really applies, is that like there's not anything inherently wrong with like taking like telling you that like yes, you are using your identity as like a way to win the round. When the round is something that like it's something that like the affirming of the round helps your mental health and like helps your thing, right? Like there's a general understanding on the circuit that a response to disclo theory from small schools can be like, we're a small school, you're like commodifying us, or like our identity gets us out of this argument. But then those same low resource teams don't extend that same rhetoric to trans debaters and people like that have issues with like certain unique arguments or certain unique.
Holy shit, they're literally making the I just bit down on a cough drop. Hang on. Sorry. I can't let this go by without speaking to this, so sorry. All right. Had to swallow it. Okay. The argument that was just made was that sometimes when low resource schools are debating high resource schools, then the low resource schools say, we're a low resource school, so we should win because we have less resources than the high resource school. It is literally the fucking capitalism argument. It is literally the equity argument. This is why I keep hammering that the left doesn't care about any of the identity shit. It is always and forever about capitalism. That's what it always is. When they're saying a lower resource school versus a higher resource school, they're talking about money. They're talking about capital. And when they're saying lower resource schools should win because they have less capital, they're arguing for equity. This is a literal argument for a redistribution of resources to compensate the low resource school and make them on the same level as the upper resource school. And people don't notice it because it doesn't relate to trans or race or gender or any of these things. And so it apparently never popped up before as something to be a concern. And this is why we always need to keep in mind capitalism is their enemy. They don't care about trans. They don't care about gender. They don't care about race. They don't care about any of these things. It's just a sexier way to make the equity argument.
Resolutions, and it's just like there's so many double standards in this community, particularly against trans debaters, when I feel like this community is really eager to use the struggles of other disadvantaged debaters against trans debaters uniquely.
If I could just add something, I've been thinking about this for a while, like how to phrase this. And I guess the one message that I wanted to leave, as my last debate, the last time talking as a debater in this space, was that while we have so much work to do to make this community a lot better and more inclusive, I think that it's important to still realize that at least for me, as coming from a public school, and then even at I go to US, which is an all guys school, and so these conversations don't happen often or don't happen at all. And so I think I just wanted to thank the debate community for making me aware of these arguments and of people's struggles. And without this community, I wouldn't be as aware, or I wouldn't be who I am today, or as aware.
This poor guy is literally thanking them for sending him to the re-education gulag. This poor guy. And this is why incel communities exist, guys. Situations like this right here.
Without this community, and while there's still so much progress, I think this community is pretty special. But yeah,
I also think that I think at the beginning of my freshman year, I wasn't versed well in any of these issues in the debate space or out of it. But I think that now, even though much of this conversation has been about what the work needs to be done, we also have done a lot of work in terms of helping these people and helping get a message across, right? So in Ohio, for example, I know that a debater from Hawken created Ohio for Equity and calls out the OSDA for terrible actions that they've done, including gender biases and things like that. So it's really heartwarming to see how much progress we've made, but we still do have a lot of ways to go and a lot farther to progress.
I also wanted to bring up sorry if I'm looking at what y'all, just got a couple of messages that people asked. First of all, to anyone who wants to contribute to this question, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but someone asked, how do we for people who are either becoming first year outs or who are already second year outs, third year outs, how can they be more inclusive to queer and trans debaters? And I guess the other thing is another person passed on the question, what are the practices for a judge in establishing a safe space? So like, what can judges put in their paradigms to, make trans kids feel safe? What can they do in the round? Things like that.
I think one thing that has stood out to me a lot is that I think there should be more rigorous conflicts and I think first year outs should take a more active role in actively conflicting themselves from people they are very close with personally, which of course is really difficult sometimes if you're like a debater who had a lot of friends on the circuit. But I've personally been in rounds, and I know this isn't like directly related to being trans, but I think part of it is also like there are a lot of trans debaters who may not be as like connected as like other people on the circuit, and it just feels very awkward to be in rounds where the judge is very obviously personal friends with the other team. And it feels like after myself having some experience judging rounds, it feels very difficult no matter how much like you try to remove the bias that you have from just like knowing a team personally. Like you can try your hardest to be objective on the flow, but even that like isn't going to be the case. And then like if you have a personal friend who then does something that is violent to
Kyle, they're considering speech to be material support. So how are they materially supporting Hamas? Dave Rubin says that speech that is pro-Hamas is material support. They're considering speech to be material support. How on earth could these groups be materially supporting Hamas? Are they sending Hamas bombs? That doesn't make any sense. So, no, I don't believe that they're materially supporting Hamas. I believe they're engaging in speech that they don't like.
Like your trans their trans opponents. Like I feel like being personal friends with someone makes you much more willing to be lenient on them in a lot of circumstances, especially when you are like subconsciously rooting for them to win. So I'm not sure what tournaments can do to try and like make this a norm in itself, because I think that would also be important if tournaments could establish better conflict rules. But even without that, I think any first year out to like want to make this space safer should try their best to do that, like on their own time.
Hi, sorry to interrupt actually. So I was contacting my partner. They're currently in school right now, so they're not able to be in the call, but they asked me to share a message with everyone here, so I'll just read it verbatim. So this is Angelina. I haven't come out as non-binary to my team, but I'm so glad we're finally getting a representation. This discussion has been long overdue, and I'm glad it's getting acknowledged on a national level. Thank you guys so much for this and taking the time and round to have this discussion.
I wonder what the overlap is between autism and people who participate in elite high school debate. I wonder what the overlap is between people who think they're non-binary and the people who participate in elite high school debate. And those might be very similar questions because autistic kids are particularly susceptible and sometimes directly targeted with gender ideology to make them think they're non-binary when in fact they're autistic and they're socially awkward and they don't fit in, or they're just weird and they don't fit in, and then they're taken aside by a autistic sex education teacher. And if you don't know what autistic sex education is, search for it on my Substack and you'll learn very quickly. They're taken aside by a sex ed teacher who says, you know what your problem is? You know why you're weird? You know why you don't fit in? Because you're non-binary. I wonder how often that happens.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to read something that someone sent. It isn't a question for anyone, but just anonymously. As a closeted trans person, I'm only a freshman, but I've already been misgendered, had my opponents mock my voice, etc. I feel like lay judges and parent judges are also a really big problem, especially for the queer community, because I've had many experiences where lay judges tell me I'm being too aggressive or too emotional when someone misgenders me or repeatedly talks over being cross. I've stopped myself from making a lot of changes in my appearance because I'm afraid that lay judges will drop me for not looking normal. So I think if things get more normalized, it would make me and a lot of other people feel safer while debating. Another thing is debaters outside of round. I have some friends who often make fun of people with preferred pronouns, but then proceed to advocate for the queer community in round. As a non-cis woman of color, I think normalizing calling people out for these things is really important. And I especially think the last part is really important, right? Of like, if you're going to read this stuff, you need to do your due diligence, right? Like, and I think Coben did a really important like Facebook post on this during the Medicare for All topic, right? Where like trans arguments and queer arguments were super common. If you are going to do that stuff, you need to know the ins and outs of it, right? Like, Rebecca and I had this conversation in like August where I was like, people are reading all of these arguments about like gender reassignment surgery, gender confirmation surgery, all that kind of stuff that like hormones that like they don't understand how it works. They have genuinely no idea. Like they're reading arguments that make literally no logical sense because they're just factually false about these sorts of, for instance, access to medical care and the way that trans people are treated. And so like if y'all want to read those arguments, more power to you. You don't need to be trans or queer to read that stuff, but you know, try to sort of, I guess, think about and really try to understand the nuances of that. That's at least important to me.
So as a cis debater, it really upsets me when I hear stories of like my trans friends who get treated wrongly or misgendered and round. And it gets even worse with lay judges. And I think what JJ was saying before is like a really big issue. I actually have my mom sitting here right next to me. And even though she's never judged a PF round before, I think maybe one day she might. And I think it's important for her to hear these kinds of conversations as well. And I know there are cultural barriers in some households, but even taking a second to try and attempt to talk to your parents, especially if they're going to be sent in as a judge, is really important, because there is a chance that they will take what you're saying to heart and that it could make a big change in a round where someone does feel unsafe because of the type of judge they were assigned. And maybe it can make some sort of change if you at least talk to your parents about these issues, especially if they're going to be sent in as a judge.
Yeah, I definitely agree with 100% of that. I want to point out something someone messaged me, which like I also wholly agree with, which is that like I think judge paradigms should include stuff about like not using gender language and just being very specific about the ways that kids can help the kids can like private message them or take actions in the round if they feel unsafe, because so many people on the circuit have like, oh, don't be like racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever in their like in their paradigms. But it's difficult if you, as someone earlier mentioned, aren't in that marginalized group to understand exactly what that violence, how that violence manifests and what the best way for like kids to deal with it. So putting like understanding first by talking to other people, and then putting ways that maybe, for example, trans debaters can reach out to them like if they feel violent is I think a good first step. And I think more generally, something's really important is just for judges to always have the mindset that if someone brings up something, your first reaction should be defaulting to their experience instead of your idea of what their experience should look like. I think obviously there's conversations about how debaters should take various arguments in good faith, but I think that's also really important for judges to do. And that might seem really obvious, but a lot of times judges just maybe like, even if they're trying to like evaluate arguments objectively, they have like preconceived notions that they're just like not willing to set aside.
Yeah, and after hearing what Nanish just said, something else just occurred to me, especially after seeing what the tab people have sent in chat. Something that really makes a lot of sense, and I've seen it's not every tournament that does this, but some tournaments have equity forms, offices, procedures, stuff like that. I think those things are dramatically underutilized, and something that has to be utilized more, especially by people that don't directly experience.
They all have equity offices. They all have equity offices. How this stuff got cemented in K through 12 schools was the left went into every single school district in the country and set up an equity office. And they did this, and we talked about this at the beginning of the stream, but just in case people have shown up since then, they did this starting in around 2008, 2009, 2010. And since then, pretty much every single school district in the country has an equity office. If your kids are in public school, go on to the school district website and search the term equity. If they don't have an office that has equity in the name, they have something else that might go by a different name, but still all it does is equity. What does equity mean? Pop quiz for the chat. What does equity mean? These kids have just told us that if you're having issues with this stuff, just go to your equity office. Just go to your equity office. They'll help you out because every school district in the country has an equity office. What does equity mean? It does mean equality of outcome. That's not the answer I'm looking for. It does mean equal outcomes. It does mean, okay, it means equal outcomes. What does that mean, guys? This is another area where conservative influencers failed their audience. And I did this for a couple of years too, but now we're getting more specific. What does equality of outcomes mean? Socialism. Anti-capitalism. Socialism. Marxism. Socialism. The only way that you can have a society built on equity is if everyone is the same. And the only way that's ever going to happen is if you eliminate individualism and meritocracy. Individualism and meritocracy are the bedrock foundations of capitalism. You cannot have a society that has individualism and meritocracy without that society having capitalism. Equity offices in every school district in the country are explicitly to make sure that Marxism, socialism, far left ideology is integrated into every single thing that school district does. That's what they're for. That's what they're doing. Do not listen to them when they say this is just about equality, because equality is a completely different term than equity. If it was just about equality, why didn't they use the word equality instead of equity? Don't listen to them when they say, this is just about making sure that people have the resources they need. No, it's not. Don't listen to them when they say, this is just about making sure people aren't discriminated against. No, it's not, because when equity uses the term discrimination, what they mean is discrimination at a systemic level. And when they tell you, this is just about reducing disparities in outcomes, what they mean is fucking socialism. Because we will never have a society in which everyone has equal outcomes when it's built on capitalism, but we will have a society in which that is built on equal outcomes where every member of the party is the same, and that only exists under socialism.
Experience the kind of like harassment and discrimination we're seeing. I think everyone has a responsibility to use those things when you see violent things happening. And I think there's also a responsibility from everyone who runs a debate tournament to create these kind of things, to make tournaments safe spaces for the people that are supposed to be going to them.
I wanted to touch on that just really quickly. And to preface this, I've had nothing but good experiences with the UK tab. Lincoln, you're super cool. But at other tournaments, these equity forms and these procedures and these tab staffs are not always friends, and they're not always allies. And I don't think I should name names, but there was a pretty significant incident that happened to a trans person at a major tournament earlier this year. And TAB did not respond with action. They responded with bullying people who were speaking out about it into being quiet and going to round. So I don't think that it's good for us to rely on tournament procedures. And I don't think that it's good for us to rely on judges either. At the end of the day, it should be individual action that is changing. We should not A, scapegoat this on tournaments, or B, trust tab staffs to fix it.
I think that's a really good point. Also to bring up just something else that someone just messaged. They asked, I was wondering if you could go into more detail on how cis debaters should approach running arguments about the trans community or any marginalized group, not necessarily a K, but just a post-fiat argument. So I think, I don't know if anyone has thoughts on like what we were talking about before, if like if you're going to read arguments about like trans healthcare, trans violence, stuff like that. Maybe Dan, if you all have like places where you think cis people should start sort of exploring.
Is this the failure of the transmission of masculine values? No, it's not, because they want to eliminate all gender. Their goal is not just to eliminate masculinity, it's to eliminate femininity too. Why do you think non-binary people don't look feminine? They don't want any gender to exist. It's not just about men.
Exploring those arguments or any sort of particular base of knowledge that you think is important?
I can only really speak to arguments about queerness and transness, but if you are interested in reading stuff about queerness, looking for literature and such, I can help Sean Wallace. I'm on Facebook. But I think in terms of what has to happen before you read those arguments, JJ, I think you made a fantastic point earlier about, for example, with arguments about gender affirming surgery, understanding what that actually means. But I think it goes further than understanding the concept. And I think it goes into what material actions outside of the debate space are you taking to support support the people who are being oppressed by the issues that you delineate in your arguments. I.e., if you're from the DC area and you're reading arguments about, queerness, transness, etc., I think you should, if you're financially capable of it, be giving money to Casa Ruby, that kind of thing. Material support to real people who are affected by these issues should come alongside your advocacy.
I just want to add, so I speak as a cis queer person in debate, but I think one thing that's really big, and people
A
can correct
cis
me on
queer
this, is
person.
representation with authors. I think that people often read arguments or like cards that, and even like about other countries, about other places, about other experiences, but the authors are not someone who identifies in that way, or not someone who should frankly even like have an opinion on the topic. For example, like I think that it's important on the healthcare topic that if you're finding a argument about like reassignment surgery or anything affecting an identity that's not yours, you want to find an author.
Well, how can you be cis and queer? Well, let's answer that question, Beth, because cis is the opposite of trans, right? So trans traditionally means transitioning from man to woman or woman to man. So maybe this person doesn't believe they're trans, but believes they're queer, as in maybe non-binary, maybe they're a lesbian, maybe there's some other thing, But in theory, you can be non-binary and still consider yourself cis because you're not trans. No, this is not true. 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 I'm going to keep saying this until you guys get it. Queer is a far left political ideology. You can be anything. I mean, this is probably the answer. You don't have to be trans to be queer. You don't have to be gay to be queer. You can be anything and be queer. So how can this person be cis and queer? Because queer is a far left political ideology. It is not about, this is what I should have answered in the first place. It's not about trans. It's not about gay. It's not about anything. You could be a straight white man and still be queer.
Who represents that matter and who has the right to speak on that matter. And I think that a lot of debaters think it's extra work and it takes extra time, but they don't understand.
That's not what's happening here, because that person's about 19, 20 years old. So that is actually not what's happening at all. And every single time you guys, God damn it, you guys are your own worst fucking enemies. I swear. And this is why I want to quit this every fucking day of my life, because it's like no one fucking listens and it all goes in one ear and out the other. And I'm just like, I'm at the end of my goddamn rope. If you are saying this, you are playing into what the left wants you to do. They want you to believe that. The only people that benefit by you believing that is the left. Queer is not about being gay. It's not about being trans. They have redefined the term. They've hijacked the term. It is a far left political ideology. I mean, again, I don't think this is true, Kyle, because literally Dave Rubin said that speech in favor of Hamas was providing material support to Hamas. So how is a student club at a university in Florida providing material support to Hamas? How is that even possible? That makes no sense. You know what, Laquitius? You're right. You're right. That was my bad, bro. My bad. You are correct. I misread what you said, and I just dressed you down when you didn't deserve it. I can admit when I'm wrong. You were right. I misread what you said. I misread what you said. My bad. I'm usually not wrong, but I was wrong on that one, so I apologize. I apologize for giving you a tone. I might have meant Prometheus's comment. All right, let's finish this up, guys.
And how much of a difference that makes to even hear the author in round, like, or even to see a card from a different debater, and you see the author, and it's just, and it is representation in the same way that you have representation in debaters, and you also have to support like other people and their publishing. And but I think that's a big thing that debate needs to do more, is use authors of different identity and more representation in our authors.
So this isn't up to me to decide, but I guess if everyone's okay with it, I think I don't want to make your day too long, and this would have been about the length of the round anyway. So if anyone, sorry if you were going to say something, but just if anyone either from university or the judges or anyone in the room wants to say,
I'm gonna get you at some point, Prometheus.
What I guess
when you
what
least
you've either
fucking
taken away
expect it,
or
bro.
something that all of us can do to make the debate space safer.
Just before, sorry, just huge shout out to like everyone who participated. This is like a huge Zoom call and live
so
streams
scary.
and whatever. And like, I cannot imagine the way like people have, and it's so important, but really putting yourself out there, and like, it wouldn't have worked if people, weren't willing to do that. And so, yeah, like that's just so awesome. I'm in awe, especially like younger kids. It's just, I'm like so in awe of all of you. It's so cool. So.
I didn't want to be like the last person to talk, but I just wanted to say that it's important to like make sure that instances like these aren't just sort of one and done. And I know probably a lot of people are thinking like, oh, this is like similar to like the Corey Lane TSC octaves sort of discussion. And I think that thinking of it like that is not necessarily the best because we realize how rare these instances really are. When in reality, they should be happening every single tournament. Like we should be constantly
this should be happening
sort of improving the way in which we like include people as a community.
Yeah.
And I think that just as everyone moves forward today, I think that it's a good idea to reflect on like how far we've come, but also how we can continue to progress forward. It's important to remember a lot of great movements that have shaped the way that debate has become more and more inclusive, but it's also important to realize that we're still incredibly imperfect as a community. So like it's mentioned in Dalton's app, the Louisville project was a key starting point of sort of deconstructing the way that whiteness operates in debate. I also think that, I guess, more recent teams have done an excellent job of sort of making the debate space more inclusive. Dalton, obviously, y'all have got the TFC finals. Huge congratulations. Great run. Awesome affirmative. But I also wanted to mention, I think that Sean doesn't get enough credit, but I think that Sean Wallace, Anya Tang, Coben, a lot of these people are people that some of us have interacted with on the circuit. And I think that we just don't give them enough credit for what all these people have done to improve debate as a community. North Broward, as a program, consistently read arguments about Black participation and increasing that in debate. And then obviously, there are numerous debaters reading arguments about queer participation and representation in debate. So I think that it's just really important that we make sure that like none of these people are sort of forgotten, and none of their ideas that they sort of preached are also forgotten along the way.
And I think I'd like just to add to that. Marcus and I were recently discussing that, you know, when you leave debate, you don't really remember each round and if you won or lost. Originally, we were thinking, oh, it's the memories that you make, you know, with your teammates and friends. But I think what's more important now is what kind of impact you leave on the debate space. And I'm really glad that Marcus and I chose to, and we all chose to engage in this discussion to make this a better place. So,
yeah. And just last thing before we go, I wanted to thank all four of you, and first congratulate you guys, because for you seniors, this is the end of a debate for long years, and I want to congratulate you all. I want to thank you for having this be your last debate experience. I want to also thank you for allowing this to happen, university and Dalton, for bringing up arguments that you could definitely receive backlash on, and especially JJ for being brave and taking this step all throughout the tournament. But I want to thank you and congratulate you all, and wish you best of luck for post-graduation plans or for school next year.
I so wanted to be the first one to congratulate you guys, but my fellow judge beat me to it. I have nothing directly relevant to contribute to this conversation, but thank you guys for having it. It was eye-opening. It was really meaningful, and it was really interesting to watch and important. Second, congratulations, you guys. It's incredible that you all made it this
was
far.
like having
To
none of
Dalton,
it. She just
congratulations for making it this far, doing something that you're so clearly passionate about.
like hat tip to this judge over here who was just like, I'm not engaging with this bullshit, and just pieced out for most of it. That's hilarious. This judge right here who said absolutely nothing and took herself off camera the entire time, the hero we need.
And that is good, right? And that is about more than just the debate round. And also congratulations for being, from at least what I can see for the past hour, really upstanding, outstanding people all around. I think that's really important, and that will serve you so much better than how you do at a tournament anyway. So really nice work.
I'll just echo that. Congratulations, y'all. I don't have much more to say, but thank you very much. And, I hope you all have more than success in the future.
Thank you.
Someone give that judge a medal.
Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you also.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for having this conversation.
Listen, that last judge, man, that last bit, that gave me life. It's been a shitty day. I've been in a bad mood. That gave me life. The one rebellious judge. I mean, you almost wish she had said something at the end, but she kind of couldn't, right? We can forgive her for that. She couldn't. It wouldn't have amounted to anything. It just would have been like causing problems. But that was just fucking beautiful. It was beautiful. Like, yes, the last judge that just took herself off screen. She was the real winner in all of this. All right, guys, I need to go take a break because you guys know it's Tuesday, and Tuesday means that we are doing Nothing Remotely Controversial in about an hour and a half at 9:30. Nothing Remotely Controversial is a weekly show that I do with Joshua where we talk about the news and what is ever going on in the world. Then Joshua will psychic what is coming next. Is World War III upon us? We can psychic that and hopefully some other delightful things as well in about an hour and a half. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I will be back soon. Take care.